Let's see, open the public meeting. All right, I'd like to open the public meeting. I need a roll call in order to do so. So, Mr. Baker,
Yes.
Mr. Tanzi,
Yes.
Mr. Hessian,
Yes.
Mr. Haynes,
Yes.
myself is a yes. Here we go, just gonna read.
So now, Rob, the next motion you're going to take is motion to take your agenda out of order and have the executive session prior to the reopening of the public hearing on the Shingle Mill project.
I need a motion on exactly what Mr. Galvin said.
I'll make a motion on exactly what Mr. Galvin said.
All right, I've got a motion. I need a second.
I'll second.
I got a second. Roll call. Mr. Baker,
Yeah.
Mr. Hessian,
Yes.
Mr. Tanzi,
Yes.
Mr. Haynes,
Yes.
and myself is a yes.
Okay, so let me help you with the motion, Rob, to go into executive session, okay?
Please do.
All right, and you can adopt this, or a board member can adopt this. The motion would be to move that the board enter executive session for the purposes of discussing strategy with respect to pending litigation where an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the Zoning Board of Appeals, and the chair so declares pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, and the case is McGee versus Zoning Board of Appeals.
I would entertain a motion.
And you'll be returning to open session at the conclusion of the executive session.
I would entertain a motion on exactly what Mr. Galvin said.
Motion.
Motion to adopt.
Yes.
I need a second.
I'll second.
I got a second. Kim, you choose which one seconded. I need a roll call. Mr. Baker,
Yes.
Hessian,
Yes.
Mr. Tanzi,
Yes.
Mr. Haynes.
Yes.
Myself is a yes.
Okay, so everybody who's on this public meeting, we'll be back in about 10 minutes. We have another login. You can hang here. There won't be any discussion of the Shingle Mill project until after the executive session. So everybody else just hang on and we'll be right back, okay?
We're behaving.
Where's Mrs. Parsons? Is she still here?
Yep, I'm still here.
Mary Parsons, what's going on?
What's not going on?
I know. Well, we're trying to get everybody back in here.
Interesting. We're probably the best reality show going.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Mr. Rosa, you're already in open session, so you don't have to open the session again. You just have to open the continued session of the ZBA
Gotcha. Let me just get the
by roll call vote.
here. All right. Say that again. I need a roll call vote to open the,
Continued session of the Shingle Mill low and moderate income housing project.
all right. Who do I got all my board members here?
I see them all.
1, 2, 3, I'm 4, and where's Mr. Baker? Mr. Baker, all right. I need a motion on exactly what Mr. Galvin said.
Motion.
Second,
Second.
I got a second. Roll call. Where the hell are we? Mr. Haynes,
Yes.
Mr. Hessian,
Yes.
Mr. Tanzi. He can't, Mr. Tanzi.
He's muted.
Yeah, he's muted.
Uh,
Mr.
Sorry about that.
Are you in favor?
Yes.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carries. All right. I'm
And
gonna read-
Mr. Galley as well. Don't forget Mr. Galley.
Oh, where's Mr. Galley? And I don't see him.
You might not be logged in yet.
Might not be, he's not on the board as of yet anyway. He's he is an alternate.
He was sworn in. He's on the board now.
He's an alternate.
Okay, but just introduce him.
Yep, no, that's understood. I saw that he jumped in someplace, but he's not. I don't see him. There we go, Mr. Galley. All right, I'd like to introduce Stephen Galley. He's our new zoning board alternate. He'll be sitting in on the meeting tonight, and he'll be asking questions once we get to it. All right, let me read the Let me read the advertisement here. Remotely conducted continuance public hearing on the petition filed under Chapter 40B comprehensive permit by Shingle Mill LLC, care of Conoco, 41st Street, Bridgewater, Mass. 02324, to allow the construction of 236 units of residential housing called The Project within two 5-story buildings on approximately 29.33 acres of land located at 0 Pond Street and 152 Wilson Street, the site. The applicant is proposing 25% of the units to be classified as affordable as per MGL Chapter 40B. The site is located on 0 Pond Street, Lot 13, Map 9, and 152 Wilson Street, Lot 68, Map 10. Roll call vote required. I already did that, so I don't have to do it again, correct, Mr. Galvin?
Yes, you've already opened the meeting.
All right, a copy of this application, materials, plans, and other documents are available upon request electronically from the town clerk or zoning board of appeals. You can visit the following link. There it is. All right, back to normal. Mr. Andronico, how you doing?
Yes, sir. I'm doing well. Thank you for having us back.
Absolutely not a problem. We've been going back and forth with trying to get you as much feedback as humanly possible. I know that some of it is missing. I know of it, some of it has been missing. We've received information, we've received letters from both, it's not here, both the fire department and the police.
Yes, we received those this evening.
All right, you did get them.
Yes, we did. Obviously, we haven't fully reviewed them, and we won't be able to comment much on those this evening. But
Okay.
we did receive them today, and we will go through and respond to them in the same way that we responded to the pieces that we did receive.
Okay, what I would like to do is I'd like to get my Zoom back up here. There we go.
So
What I'd
Rosa,
like-
don't forget, Ms. Barrett is also involved, the town's consultant, and she's present.
Where? Oh, hold on.
She's
Right
below
there.
you on my
Oh,
screen.
wow, I got three other plans here, or 3 other pages here. Hi, Judy, how you doing?
Hi. If I speak, you can probably see me.
No, I got you now. I didn't even realize I had 3 other pages on here.
I would never miss a meeting,
I
Mr. Chair.
apologize. Thank you very much for showing up, and I appreciate all the hard work you've been doing.
No problem.
Don't think that I haven't been paying attention.
And that's fine. That's what I'm here for.
There we go. What I'd like to do, if it's okay, for those that haven't seen this letter, I would like to read some of these into the record, if that's okay, Mr. Andronico.
Absolutely.
I've got a letter from the Rockland Police Department from Lieutenant Zioli. Lieutenant Zioli. I'll make this quick. Letter dated October 26, 2020. Dear Sir, based on the revised and updated plans for the Shingle Mill housing development at 0 Pond Street, I have the following comments that I would like to offer the board for their consideration. In regards to parking, it is my understanding that the developer is allowing roughly 1.5 spaces per unit. What was the actual, do you remember what the actual number was? I thought it was 1.25.
I believe it was 1.25, if that helps, at the time of that submission.
At the time of the submission? All right. Let's see, is allowing roughly 1.5 spaces per unit. With that in mind, our department would like to ensure that the developer has ample parking for both its residents and for guests who visit the site. This would limit the potential of overflow parking on the main causeway and nearby neighborhoods. We have existing housing developments that utilize permitting programs that have worked well to address this issue. This way, unwanted vehicles could be towed by the housing complex expeditiously if needed. With the amount of units proposed, it would be reasonable to expect significant pedestrian traffic from the complex. This would include residents going for casual walks or to visit some of the local stores such as Home Depot. For that reason, we would recommend the installation of sidewalks on Pond Street that extend both south and north on Pond Street. The police department would like to have unfettered 360-degree access to the site, which would allow a cruiser to drive around the complex. Lastly, it is my understanding that the construction of the site will require a substantial delivery of fill material. With this in mind, the developer should consider scheduling deliveries so that they do not adversely affect the traffic flow during peak times such as the morning and afternoon rush hours. The developer should be willing to consider police details if necessary to assist any potential traffic issues around the site during construction. This could be coordinated with the police department on an as-needed basis. The Rockland Police Department looks forward to working with the board and the developer on this project. Thank you, Lieutenant Nicholas Violi. That's one. The second one is from the fire department. Let's push this open here. Dated October 26, 2020. Dear Mr. Rosa, that's me. The Rockland Fire Department has reviewed the 75 to 79 Pond Street Shingle Mill multifamily development site plans. The Rockland Fire Department has no objections to this development. However, we do have concerns with the site conditions shown on the September 4th, 2020 site drawings. The following is our list of concerns and proposed project conditions. That, Mr. Andronico, that was the last set that was submitted, correct?
September 4th, that's correct.
Okay. It is preferred that all, number one, it is preferred that all buildings have 360-degree access for firefighting vehicles. It is understood that often this cannot be accommodated due to site restrictions and building layout. The Rockland Fire Department had been in contact with the designers of this site and had requested as much access around the buildings as possible. The site engineers had previous site access designs that allowed for fire lanes to be constructed at the rear of each building. Refer to fire truck turning simulation drawings dated June 3rd, 2020. The latest drawings dated July 13th, 2020, which, okay, no longer show these fire lanes. Is that correct?
I'd have to take some time to review those actual comments and refer to the drawings that he noted and
Understood.
confirm that they've looked at the most accurate set.
Understood. I believe he did. I know there was a typographical error, and he did have to reissue this letter. I do have the most recent one, and I think that may have been something else that had to be cut and pasted out of there. But I'm
Mr.
just.
Chair, I think that Pat Brennan is on this call, so when you finish, if you want to confirm something that's in the fire department's memo, I think you could also ask Pat to weigh in.
Mr. Brennan, where are you? No star. There he is.
I'm here.
There.
Okay. You've read this letter, is that correct?
I did. I believe that his reference to the July 13th plans was incorrect.
Okay,
He meant to say the September 4th plans.
That's what I thought. So I'm just, the last drawings dated September 4th, 2020, no longer show these fire lanes. The Rockland Fire Department is concerned with the limited access. If a fire were to occur, access to residents above the third floor would be drastically limited, especially at the rear of the buildings. This is a life safety concern for the residents of the buildings. The Rockland Fire Department is requesting the Rockland ZBA to set conditions requiring level graded 20-foot fire lanes at the rear of each building where possible. It is understood that the fire lanes may not be continuous due to wetland restrictions. Still, every effort will be made to ensure that the Rockland Fire Department aerial ladder will have access to all floors and living units within each building. Any retaining walls along fire lanes, parking areas, or fire department access roads must be engineered to support the heaviest fire department's vehicles weight that may respond. CMR 527.18.2.2.1.1.1. Wow. All fire lanes will be kept clear of snow at all times. Due to the density of this development, vehicle parking will be a concern for safety access. The Rockland Fire Department is requesting that the Rockland ZBA set conditions that require the property owner and management to maintain no parking fire lane signage and road markings along all fire lanes. Also, the Rockland Fire Department requests no parking be allowed along any portion of the 24-foot wide entrance causeway to the property. We already said that was going to be a condition, correct? There was no parking along the causeway?
I'm not sure if it was noted as a condition, but that's not anything that we're entertaining.
I'm meaning that I thought that you guys had already said that there would be no parking.
Yeah, there would not be. There's no plan to.
The parking lot access, that was number 3. Number 4, the parking lot access shall allow for the widest turning radius of all trucks that may respond to this property. The turning radius needs to allow the apparatus to remain in their lane and not cross into the opposing travel lane provided by the RFD upon request. 527 CMR law. Location of fire hydrants. The Rockland Fire Department requests the Rockland ZBA to set the following conditions. Fire hydrants shall not be placed on stand-alone islands within the parking area. Fire hydrants shall be located on sidewalk areas and protected from vehicle and snowplow damage. Number 6, the Rockland Fire
Mr.
Department.
Chairman? Could I weigh in on that one real quick?
You absolutely can.
It is my view that fire hydrants should be placed on the backside of the sidewalks, not in the sidewalks.
The Rockland
Because
Fire
it's a
Department.
safety issue. We've been dealing with that because we've done Union Street over.
Yep.
We have a number of fire hydrants that are halfway in the middle of the sidewalks, and we had to go put way around, pass around them to get to the fire hydrants.
Dig it.
Any new construction, I would want to see that the fire hydrants are not placed in the paved area of a sidewalk, but behind the sidewalk.
Preferably 6 inches to a foot off the back of the sidewalk.
Yes.
I'll honestly, I read this and I kind of thought that's where he was going with it, but I know what you mean. I know in town there are several places where fire hydrants are in the middle of a sidewalk. I hear what you're saying. I assumed that's what he meant, but again, you read the words as they stand. I hear what you're saying.
Right.
Fire hydrants shall be located on sidewalk areas and protected from vehicle and snowplow damage. Number 6, the Rockland Fire Department is requesting the Rockland Zoning Board to set a condition that the dedicated 2-inch underground conduit is to be provided for municipal fire alarm. Hold on. Set a condition that a dedicated 2-inch underground conduit is to be provided for municipal fire alarm wires only. This conduit shall be installed from the base of the nearest utility pole, Rockland Fire Department municipal fire alarm. Hold on. Let me go back here. This conduit shall be installed from the base of the nearest utility pole, Rockland Fire Department municipal fire alarm wire runs, and end at each building where the master fire alarm box will be located. Mr. Andronico, did you understand anything that I just said? I read that word for word.
I did, and like I said, I have the letter, so I'll be reviewing that. And if I have any questions or need some clarity, I'll certainly just reach out.
Yes, please contact Chief Duffy if there is any questions. But again, your engineering team should be able to understand this.
Agreed.
I wanted to get that in the record only because I just wanted to make sure that people out there know that our fire department and our police department care. They really do. So I just wanted to make sure that people knew that. Mr. Brennan, how you doing?
Good.
What, got anything to say at this point?
Well, since the last hearing, I submitted a letter to the board dated September 22nd. Mr. Andronico responded to that letter with basically just a general response letter that was submitted yesterday via email.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't seen any revised plans. So until this revised.
If I might, just to bring some clarity to this. So,
yes.
And then by all means go back, but I just want to make clear that we didn't submit a revised plan to be discussed at this hearing based on the fact that we knew there were still comments to be received, i.e. the police department and fire department. So we wanted to wait till we had all those comments, and then obviously we have a presentation to give you today to give you an idea of where we think we're headed and get some feedback, and then provide that revised package. Within that package, Pat, will be the drawings that you're looking for that will go with that narrative response. I just wanted to make sure that was clear to everybody.
All right, I kind of figured that's how this was gonna go. I knew, as stated in the beginning, I knew you were waiting for a lot of correspondence from us. So I knew that's how this was gonna go.
Sure.
Miss Barrett, where are you? There you are. You're muted.
Not anymore.
There we go. What did we get? Letters from water and sewer?
If we did, I don't have them.
Okay.
I also don't have the applicant's response to Pat or whomever. I have some materials for tonight, but not those items.
Okay. All right. What I'm gonna do is I gotta figure out. I'm still trying to figure out the best way to get you in on all this without getting every single thing that comes into the board. That's the difficult part.
Yeah, the only thing is that if I'm going to help council draft the decision,
Yep.
then it is helpful to me to know what the whole list of information is that you have on file, because at some point we need to acknowledge what you have.
Exactly.
I mean, Bob may do this differently from the way I do. I usually have an exhibit that kind of lists all the, the documents of record. Not every board does that, but if we do, I kind of need to know what's there. So it is a little disconcerting for me not to quite know what's where.
Well,
But I can follow up after tonight with whomever and gather things. Candy's been sending a lot to me. I just don't have the applicant's information from, I guess, if Pat just got that yesterday, I don't have that, I'm sure.
Mr. Andronico, have you received anything from the water and sewer department for this town?
Yes, Candy sent out a letter that was provided by the sewer commission, which apparently is yet to be signed by the board. I believe, based on her correspondence, I was under the impression that it was in your hands. I'm not sure if it's appropriate for me to read that letter or not, but I do have a letter from the sewer commission.
It's still but still in draft form, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan, did you get a copy of this?
Yeah, I got the letter from the sewer department. I got a copy of it.
And it's still in draft?
It is still in draft. I just picked it up yesterday.
Are we, all right, Mr. Galvin, are we able to discuss that at this point because it still is a draft?
Sure.
Okay, Mr.
Yeah.
Brennan,
Yes.
can you paraphrase that letter for us, please? Sorry, man.
Well, they basically said that if the board were to approve the project, they had 6 conditions that they would like the board to impose on the project.
Okay.
The first two, or the first one, that the first one, they state that the sewer system is being managed under an EPA administrative consent order, and they need to have the capacity to be able to handle this development. But the comment really doesn't tell exactly what they're looking for there. The second one says that the applicant shall pay a sum of money pursuant to that EPA administrative consent order to make the required improvements to the town of Rockland's sewer system prior to commencement of any work on the proposed project. The third is the proposed connection, when performed, shall be completed at the applicant's cost and expense and must be performed in compliance with the rules and regulations of the sewer commission in effect at the time of the approval. The fourth one, the applicant is responsible to pay for the required sewer connection permit fees and expenses previously agreed to by the board and developer, which shall issue upon approval of final sewer connection plans by the town of Rockland Sewer Commission. And then they have an attachment that has those draft fees. The fifth is they want some concrete around pipe joints in case there's any shifting or movement of the sewer mains. And the sixth condition was at the 5 and 10 year marks. They want video surveys of the sewer system on site to make sure that there's no, the integrity of the pipes are intact and that there's no inflow or infiltration issues. And that would be done by the owner of the project. And if there was any issues, corrective actions would need to be taken at the expense of the project owner.
And what was the date of that letter, please?
Again, it's a draft, September 29th, 20, yeah.
And Mr. Andronico, that sounds familiar? Yes,
Yep.
same letter?
Same
Okay.
letter that I received, sounds like.
All right.
Mr.
Brennan?
Rosa, it's Bob. Mr.
Yep.
Rosa, it's Bob Galvin. That was the substance of a motion that was acted upon
Right.
at the last sewer commission meeting. So that was, that's the genesis of that draft letter.
Okay. All right. Mr. Brennan, did you receive anything from the water department at this point?
I have not seen anything from the
Okay.
water department.
Well, there is a memo from the end of July from the Abington Rockland water system.
Do you have that, Judy? Do you
Yeah,
have
it was
that
in the
front of you?
packet I sent a while ago. Hold on.
I just want to make sure, again, it's more to make sure that A, the applicant does know what that, we're trying here, but B, it's also, I want the townspeople that are on this meeting right now to know that their town departments are working for them, or at least trying to.
So this was in the packet that I did send a while back. It's a July 30th memo.
Did Mr.
Have you-
Andronico, does that sound right?
Yes, and we received that and responded accordingly and made adjustments to plan accordingly. So I think that what's pertinent now is that the water department make comment on the 9-4 package, which is different than the package they reviewed that they reference in that memo that you're referring to, Judy.
So I don't even know if they have that packet.
Okay, we have to get on them. We have to get on the ball and make sure that they do. That's important. So if we can just put that on our radar and put that ball in our court and use every cliche we can come up to say that we have to get on the water department to make comment on the September 4th revision.
Mr. Chair, with all due respect, I think they need a print of the plan.
Right, no, that's what I'm saying. I mean, we have to get them a copy. I'm only assuming that Mr. Andronico did provide enough copies to get to every single
Because
department.
the PDF isn't going to work.
Well,
Right.
I did provide hard copies and the sizes that were prescribed by the town for
Okay,
that 9-4.
We will
I have
find
no
them.
idea what happened to them.
we will find them. I will give over my personal copies if I have to. I don't care. Next, let's see. Actually, I've been talking way too much. Mr. Andronico, you said you have a presentation you'd like to.
Yes. So as I had mentioned, I thought that the best way, the best use of time for this hearing, given the circumstances that we just discussed and kind of collecting all those commentary, was to put together a presentation which was representative of some of the adjustments to the plan that we are proposing in response to the comments that we received in the last hearing, and based on the comments, the written comments or responses that we have received, with the exception of the fire department and the police department. And as I mentioned before, Amory's comments, which will be included in the next pass. So what we tried to do is focus on kind of the bigger items, which seem to be the sticking points and the areas that had the most questions, so we could present to you what those changes we made might look like, get some feedback from you, so that would inform our efforts on our next and hopefully final package to submit to you for comment and response. So that being said, I'm going to try to share my screen. I should be able to do that. I'm hoping I don't need any kind of permission or anything. But I'm going to do that now, and I'm going to count on you folks to tell me if you can see it or not. What you should be seeing is a cover page to a presentation that says Shingle Mill, Rockland, Mass, and Jones Street logo at the bottom. Can everyone see that?
That's something. It's on my big screen. There we go. I got it.
Okay. I'll use you as my litmus test. If you have it, I'll assume everybody else has it.
Yes.
So let's roll right into it.
Yep.
Let me get my cursor here. Okay, so one of the topics that came up in the last hearing were that it sounded like there was some concerns about the building height and the massing plan and what that might look like. And one of the recommendations was rather than the gabled bathtub hybrid roof that we proposed and that you've seen, we explore a flat roof. So what we've done is we've created some renderings Now, some of these renderings you have already seen of the gabled roof, but we've also created some renderings of the flat roof. So I'm just going to kind of cycle through those, and you guys can ask me to toggle back and forth, whatever it works for you. I mean, the presentation's for you. So if you want me to go back or forward, you just feel free to speak up. So what you can see here is the site context photo, and this is what you've already seen. This is the gabled bathtub hybrid roof, where we have a pitched roof on the perimeter, and then you see this kind of bathtub, which is a depressed area of the roof where our mechanical systems will live. Now, you know, part of the reasons for that original design was to give this a more residential look, have it blend in with the community a little bit more, and also shield the neighbors from the roof equipment, both visually and from a sound standpoint. That was the logic behind that design. And now what you'll see here is a rendering of what a flat roof might look like. Same building footprint, same equipment, except we've pulled this down to a flat roof. This is the other site context photo, or the massing, if you will. And this is the view, obviously, from just up before the Home Depot parking lot, where you can see the gabled roof above the tree line there. And this is the version of that same building with the flat roof. Now you'll notice.
I like that.
Say again?
I like that.
Okay, well, that's what we're here to determine. So, you know, you can still see the stair towers, which are required access to the roof. It pulls down that height a little bit. Let's keep rolling. Now, the height specifically. So as designed with the gabled roof, the height of the buildings would be 69 feet, 10 inches. And you can see the rendering of it here. And then with the flat roof would be 56 feet, 2 inches. And then we have a few more photos just to give it context. So again, gabled roof, flat roof. This is a particularly good view. Now, we obviously have a preference. And I'll be honest with you, it would be cheaper for us to build the flat roof. You know, economically speaking, you know, you'd think we'd be incentivized to do that. But I have to admit that we also want to, you know, we also want this to be an appealing property. And our feeling is that when you take the gabled roof off this, it starts to look a little bit like an office building and loses some of its personality. When you compare this to the gabled roof, I know one of the other concerns was articulation in the facade. That was a comment made by Davis Square. One of the major components that we introduced to enhance that articulation or to break up the facade of the buildings were these gabled ends that you see here on the building. And now the reason we chose to do that rather than physical articulations in the building itself is that the fact of the matter is that articulations in the facade in that way create a lot of 90-degree angles. And in construction, 90-degree angles cost a lot of money. And when we originally designed this project, we explored that option, but the truth of it was it made the project economically infeasible, which is obviously an important part of this project. Much more so than the cost savings that we would go if we went to a flat roof. The cost was significant to introduce bump outs and bay windows and the like. So we tried to articulate the building with these gables, which we think we've accomplished there. Once you remove those gables, you have a very flat looking building, not a lot of personality, really has that kind of office park feel, which is what we're really trying to get away from. And again, one last view of this gabled roof versus the flat roof, although this tree is maybe inconveniently placed. So that is our flat versus gabled roof. So we can do this however you want. We can talk about kind of each section upon conclusion, or I can run through the whole presentation and we can talk after. I'll let you guys decide. It's up to you.
Board members, I'm more than happy to let Mr. Andronico just keep going here.
Agreed.
Fine.
That's what we'll do.
Everybody good? Mr. Andronico, floor is still yours.
All right, so parking, this has obviously been a challenge, as everyone knows, in this project. So when we spoke last, one of the recommendations was to entertain some underground parking. So we explored that option, and what we did was we explored introducing parking underneath the L building, which would provide 30,100 square feet of parking. We ran a cost analysis on this, which you can see broken down here on the end. It basically, the rough square footage average for underground parking is about $100 a square foot, and that's based on historical data and takeoffs that were done by our general contractor. Take $10 a square foot from that for savings on some of the foundation work. That brings you to $90 a square foot, which puts you as 2.7 million. Then you add in kind of, we'll call it the ancillary site work associated with that underground parking. And that lands us at $2.8 million to introduce underground parking, which again, would just be economically infeasible and would the dollars of the job just frankly wouldn't work.
Mr. Rosa, can I just butt in for 1 second? I don't mean to interrupt, but
No, please.
Mr. Dronico, anything that you believe would render the project uneconomic, it would be helpful for the board to have your pro forma to understand how that would be the case.
We can certainly provide that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
So we came up with an alternate solution. We came up with two alternate solutions actually, but I'll talk about this first one as well. So if you remember previously in this area over here, we had proposed a park. Now I'm going to get further into that, but let's focus on the parking. So what we've done here is we've utilized this area to introduce some additional parking. In fact, we've introduced 146 additional parking spaces, which would bring us to 456 total spaces and bring our parking ratio up from that 1.25 that we've talked about previously up to 1.93. If I remember, I think that I got the impression that the town would be willing to entertain a ratio less than the 3.0, which is prescribed. It's my thinking that close to a 2.0 ratio is much more attractive, obviously, than the 1.25, and certainly would be in the high range of what we typically shoot for on one of our properties. So we think this is a win. Now, what this does do is it does utilize the use of the paper street, which is Cedar Street, which would run right about here. And we picked that up off of this plan from 1988. This seems to be a subdivision plan. And it shows Cedar Street here. Now, here is the site. And then here is this other parcel, which we've purchased and own, which would also be a part of the site. This is where the park was previously proposed. And you can see that Cedar Street runs through it. Now, we're still working on determining exactly, because my understanding is that it's not necessarily exactly clear to the board either what the usage rights are of that road. And truthfully, we're not 100% clear either, although we are making efforts to bring some clarity to that topic. So what we did in response to this is what we came up with a second or an alternate plan, which may remedy any issue in terms of the usage by maintaining access. I seem to be frozen here, forgive me. By maintaining access along that paper street as a drive-through. So basically what we've done is we've eliminated the parking spaces that would be along Cedar and maintained access through it. So should it need to be used as a throughway for any reason, if we determine that the usage of that space prohibits us from blocking that way, we've proposed this solution, which adds 128 additional spaces, bringing the total to 438 total spaces and a parking ratio of 1.8, which is still a significant improvement over the 1.25 that we previously proposed. So that's parking. And again, I'm sure there'll be plenty of discussion about it. We can go back to it. So now I'm going to go back just a couple of slides, or even just one slide, because it kind of leads us into the next topic, which is outdoor space and outdoor amenities. Now, what you can see on this plan is what's shown. What this is a walking path down to a park area. And you'll also notice a half basketball court here. I'm going to go into much more detail on this on these next slides. But I thought this was a good overview plan to kind of show you the context of the items we're about to discuss. So what we've done is we've created some concept drawings, and they're only concept because we haven't selected furniture, we haven't placed furniture, but this is a very good representation of the type of space we're going to be creating for each outdoor amenity that I'm going to present now. So what you see here, and you can see a site context plan down here, this is the outdoor space behind the clubhouse. This is a zoomed in version that shows lounge seating, outdoor dining area, more lounge seating, and a fire pit. And you can refer to some of these context photos where we're pulling some of our inspiration from to program that space. Next slide shows the walking path and the park area and the basketball court, which I referred to earlier. So what this would be some kind of compactable surface which would lead you from the main parking lot and from this, we'll call it secondary parking lot, along this path, which is largely in existence already. It's a little unkempt, but it could be cleared with minimal effort and maintained with minimal effort. There would be site lighting along this path, which would lead you down to what we're calling it's like a nature observation deck, because you're surrounded by these natural wetlands. We have some cleared area here where we would create some open space with seating, again, more site lighting, and a walking loop, which will bring you all the way down to this observatory or nature observatory deck, and then back around here. Over here, this is more, this is gravel wetlands. This is for drainage, so not necessarily usable open space. I just wanted to make that clear if it was unclear on this rendering. Additionally, we're proposing this half basketball court for recreational space, and also some cleared area around it to provide some picnic area benches, and again, some site lighting in this area. And this will be accessible from the main parking lot in this secondary parking lot. Additionally, and this was always included in our plan, but it just puts this in a little more context. You can see down here in the site context plan that this is behind the bar building, and this is a pet run, right? So this is some kind of artificial surface, which basically is easy to maintain and it's easy to clean, right? Because we all know what the dogs or other pets will do in this area. And here are some context photos to show what this space might look like and what the proposed use of that space. So that being said, I think that we've augmented our outdoor amenity space significantly since the last time we presented to you. We hope you feel it's as appealing as we do. We think that to be quite frank, we're in this rendition of the plan, we're offering far more outdoor amenity and space than most of our other communities, and we're happy to do so. I missed an area, forgive me. So again, over kind of at the end of the L building here, we have a seating area with a pergola for outdoor dining and another potential fire pit, although undecided, and perhaps some grill stations. But again, those are some details that we haven't worked out. But at the very least, a seating area, outdoor dining, pergola. Now I want to call to attention some of the in-building amenities. And this is really in response to the Davis Square comment, because in their review, they did note some building amenities. However, the plans that they reviewed did not show every floor of the building, and therefore there was no way for them to tell what additional amenities we were proposing. So I wanted to present that and make it clear what in-building amenities we're offering. So right now you're looking at the L building, and these are color coded. So I'm going to go from the first floor up. If you start at the first floor here, the blue, matched to this blue, is our fitness center. And now this leads to a staircase, which is also open to above in this area here, as you can see in the cutout, to the second floor, which is a yoga studio, a stretch area, or it could be a cycle area as well. On the third floor, we're proposing what we're calling a maker space. And basically this is a craft area. It's workbenches and supplies and materials, somewhere where someone can do a project where they might not be able to do in their own unit. Well, we're proposing to offer a space for them to do that. Up on the fourth floor, we're proposing what we're calling a wiggle and work. We did not coin that phrase, we stole that, but the purpose of this space is basically a kids' recreation area with additional space within it for parents to work from home or get some work done while their kids play, while being able to keep an eye on them and have them within arm's reach. We think this is a really positive amenity and something that we're going to see more and more of. As everyone knows, everyone's working from home, and I myself have to balance work and playing Spider-Man with my 3-year-old. So we think this is going to be a very appealing amenity to folks that may find themselves in a situation where they have to work from home, either permanently or temporarily, and they don't necessarily have childcare. And up on the fifth floor, we are proposing a theater. We have similar amenities in some of our other communities where we have a subscription to a movie service, and it could be just as simple as Netflix or Amazon Prime, where people can either rent this space or it can just be kind of open, first come, first serve. But the idea being is theater style seating and probably a projector, a large screen and projector. That is the L building. And then in the bar building, and you can see highlighted here, this is in the center of the first floor of the bar building. We're proposing a male area with a high top kind of gathering area or someplace you can sit down and sort your mail. We have a coffee and print area, a meeting room, and individual work from home pods that you can close a door, stay away from other people with current COVID accommodations that I think most developments are starting to take into consideration now. We've offered these work from home pods here. Additionally, we have a lounge with a television, seating area, additional lounge, large gathering and dining table, kitchenette, and individual private lounges, which again can be closed off if you want to have a little private area over here. So I think that pretty much summarizes the amenities that we're offering, which we think are significant. And that will lead me to the next topic, which would be connectivity, which again is in part response to some of the Davis Square comments, and additionally in response to some of the concerns that you yourselves have expressed. So this has to do with basically the thought that the site is on an island and pedestrian access and so on and so forth. So I'll open with the point that I've made before, but we thought these pictures might help in making that point, where there's been discussions.
If they're on the board, why aren't they objecting?
Oh, who was that?
Just mute them.
I
Okay.
don't even know who it was.
All right. It was obviously somebody there. Was just mute them.
All right, if that happens again, we're okay. I'm sorry,
All right.
Mr. Andronico, please continue.
Quite all right. So I know there's been a lot of discussion about pedestrian access along the Pond Street driveway. And I would just like to call to attention to the fact that, and we've made this point before, where this is what that sidewalk would lead you to. It would lead you to Pond Street with no pedestrian access and no bike lane. And we really feel as though if we sent people down the sidewalk out to Pond Street, it would be a hazardous condition. This is a picture right from Pond Street. And with the exception of adding a sidewalk all the way down Pond Street, as was suggested in the fire department's letter, I just don't see any feasible way in sending people down Pond Street to really anywhere. So, but I'll get into some more detail on that. So let's talk about some of the amenities that are around the site. So to the west of the site, the closest developments other than the Home Depot, the Comfort Inn, and the Doubletree, you have Seasons Cafe, TK O'Shea's, Sports Cafe, and a Dunkin' Donuts, which may not be open. I wasn't 100% sure. A AAA, Registry of Deletes, a hair salon, and a liquor store, all of which are over a half a mile away. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure that we would necessarily consider this a significant commercial development, as was stated in the Davis Square response. And you can see here, to kind of put that in context, if you can see right here, this is where you would, excuse me, this is where you would enter onto Pond Street at the end of that drive. Excuse me. And this would be your route. This would be your walking route to get to this location, which is shown right here. And again, to kind of put that into context, this would be your walking path. So, and I don't mean for this question to be tongue-in-cheek or combative in any way, but I'm not sure that I would be willing to walk over a half a mile on this road to TK O'Shea's. That's kind of our logic behind not seeing the need to add that sidewalk along that driveway, because we don't think it leads anywhere. And the truth of it is, I think that anyone who lives in this neighborhood is likely not walking to any of these locations. I think it's a driving neighborhood. If we were to be in a position where this was a highly activated neighborhood and it was a walking community and we were offering no pedestrian access out to that walkway, I could understand that. And again, I'm trying to be completely objective, and I've spent time standing out on the street looking and watching the cars fly by, and we just don't feel as though this is going to be a safe condition to put our residents in. We've done a similar analysis to the east of the site. Burger King, 99, Not Your Average Joe's, all just under or over a half a mile away from the site, and no clear path or no safe pedestrian access to get to any of those locations, as you can see in these pictures along Hingham Street. We did the same thing with the northeast of the site. Home Goods is almost a mile away. Big Y is almost a mile away. it's hard for me to imagine that anyone would walk almost a mile away with no sidewalks on busy roads, which leads us to the conclusion that a sidewalk along that driveway just doesn't seem practical or doesn't necessarily solve a problem. That leads us to the next section, which is the traffic summary. Now, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe I have Jeff Brandini from McMahon, who is the engineering firm that conducted the traffic study for us. Jeff, are you on the line?
I'm here, David, yes.
Jeff, thank you for taking the time to hop on. So
No problem.
I'll do a quick overview, and then Jeff, maybe you could add a little color or some detail if I do a bad job speaking traffic engineer. So a couple of quick notes. So the study area is listed here above, and that's Pond Street at the proposed site driveway access, Pond Street at Longwater Drive, Pond Street at Hingham Street, that's Route 28, MassDOT Park and Drive, Hingham Street, Route 28 at Route 3, southbound ramps / Home Depot driveway. I should say the Route 3 southbound ramps and the Home Depot driveway will be added per Gillen's request. We've not finalized that analysis yet, but we will be submitting a revised traffic study that includes that area. It should also be noted that this data was collected in March of 2019, which was pre-COVID. So we think it's representative of, we'll call it non-lockdown conditions, where it was typical traffic and not COVID traffic, which, as everyone knows, is significantly lighter. We've also adjusted the counts by 4% to account for the below average data for Route 3 for the month of March. I think the big takeaways here are the increase in traffic generated by this development is less than 2%. And that's well below the 5% acceptable range, as you can see here in the two peak hours, the morning peak and the afternoon peak. You see we have 0.5%, 1.6%, 1.1%, and similar readings in the afternoon hours. What that averages to, it increases to approximately 6 seconds of delay at both peak hours. And that's a real number. That's 6 seconds. So far less significant than I think any of us were concerned it would be. I mean, myself included, before, we conducted the study, it wasn't clear to us either. But this study has been conducted by a reputable engineering firm, which is McMahon, and it's been reviewed by Gillen, which is the town's traffic engineer reviewer. They've concurred with these readings. The biggest comment that they made on their last review was the addition of the Route 3 to be included as a study area, which we are happy to oblige, and we will be providing that. Now, this is one where I might ask that maybe if you have any questions, now would be the time to ask, since I have Jeff on the line, and he's been so kind as to offer his time to kind of field any specific questions on the traffic study. So I would ask that if there are specific questions on this traffic, maybe now might be the time to field them.
Rob, can I make a suggestion? Bob Galvin again. Ordinarily, as a part of a traffic project, the developer does offer mitigation as a result of increases in impacts, and maybe the developer here could summarize what, if any, impacts or mitigation impacts are being proposed. Sometimes it's as simple as a timing, but maybe the board would benefit from hearing if there are any recommended mitigation.
Mr. Bandini, would you like to field that?
Oh, Jeff, you're on mute.
It's funny, I never do that, but here I am. Thanks. Thanks, David. Again, for the record, Jeff Bandini, project manager with McMahon Associates, offices at 350 Miles Standish Boulevard in Taunton, Massachusetts. Again, for the record, a registered professional engineer in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I've been doing this for about 15 years. I happen to grow up in the town of Rockland, so I do have a lot of experience with this area. So I think, David bringing me on to this project, I think was a good fit. So members of the board, just to answer any sort of specific questions regarding the potential mitigation. I think this was, again, born of the existing condition out there, specifically between, on Pond Street, between the segment of Hingham Street and the Longwater Drive intersection. particularly how that segment backs up in the southbound direction during peak hour from folks that are traveling from Route 3 that are accessing the industrial park and all the uses that are contained within that portion of the area. So a significant amount of folks turning left from Pond Street into that site. And again, what that does, given the single lane configuration of Pond Street in that cross section, those folks waiting to turn left combined with folks that are traveling northbound on Pond Street, you know, towards Hingham Street and trying to get on Route 3 towards Boston or Plymouth. There is, that delay really gums up that segment between on Pond Street between Longwater and Hingham. So what the project team has formulated is to design a exclusive left turn lane so that folks can turn on from Pond Street southbound into Longwater Drive. And so that folks traveling southbound on Pond Street towards the town of Hanover can make that through movement without being impeded or blocked by folks waiting to make that left-hand turn. And we think that will alleviate a lot of the existing vehicle delay and queue spillback that we see towards the intersection where the parking ride is. A lot of times with folks turning left from the Route 3 northbound ramps, you don't want to see that segment come up because then they're not able to successfully make that left turn. And we don't want to see them get trapped in the intersection. So to have that segment freed up, I think is a tremendous benefit to not only the existing condition of this project, but would help the mitigation in regards to the additional traffic that is proposed to be added to the existing roadways, which David mentioned is fairly insignificant by comparison. You know, we have a standard methodology that the transportation engineering industry uses to determine the amount of trips based on development of this size, and comparing that sort of generation to the existing traffic out there now is provided in the percentage of increase, which David showed in his table on the screen that you see in front of you. So again, I'd be happy to answer any specific questions on the traffic study we did, but that just gives you a glimpse of the amount of mitigation that the project team has outlined as part of this project.
Jeff, thank you for that.
Thanks, David.
Rob, can I ask a question on that? Again, it's Bob Galvin. So you're proposing a new left-hand turn lane on Route 228 so that traffic that was heading towards Rockland could be able to make a left-hand turn without disturbing the two pass-through lanes?
Not just to clarify, this would be on Pond Street. It would be a left-hand turn for vehicles to facilitate the movement into the industrial park.
Into Longwater Drive.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Can I want to point this out. Or not point this out. I want to ask this question. I know that at some point we were talking about a dedicated right turn lane into the development. Is that still on the table?
David, do you want to speak to that, or would you like me to?
If you can field that, that'd be great.
Yeah, we did. Again, Mr. Chair, we did look at that in terms of, you know, looking at the trips generated to the site. And again, we have a methodology where we balance the amount of traffic, the total traffic to the site, and balance that out as to where that traffic is coming from. You know, be it Hingham Street, the southbound ramps, from the northbound ramps, from Longwater, or from Pond Street south of the site.
Mm-hmm.
We found is that there was very little benefit to including that exclusive right turn lane, simply because there was not a significant amount of traffic that was making that right turn maneuver into the site. And we felt that there would be a better, that the project resources would be spent to alleviate an existing traffic condition. You know, that the left turns into Longwater Drive, and not necessarily mitigating the added trips as proposed as part of the project. We didn't feel that there would be a good cost to benefit ratio to implement that infrastructure.
Yeah, because my biggest concern is, again, I drive 228 pretty much every day. All right, I'm going back and forth at least 4 to 5 times a day.
Yep.
And on the evening commute, coming from Hingham,
Mhm.
there's always a fight for the people that are taking that left-hand turn down Pond Street, and they're not necessarily going to Longwater Drive. And again, this is just the commute home. So you're dealing with the 4:30 to 7 o'clock range. All right. There's always a fight. People are always trying to get over into that left-hand lane so they can make that left-hand turn on Pond Street. And they're going down Pond Street to get to Hanover, to get to that section of Rockland. So to include I love the idea of including a left-hand turn lane to get into Longwater Drive. But at the end of the day, people are trying to go home. They're not necessarily trying to go to work in Longwater Drive. Again,
Right.
you guys did the traffic study, so and again, you have more knowledge on this than I do. But just from my experience of driving, and I invite the board to talk about it. And I apologize, I'm not looking at you because I've got 2 monitors here, so I'm going back and forth. So I'm actually looking at you in your face. So I would enjoy to hear the board's thoughts on this, because again, we're all Rockland residents and we know what this area looks like. I really like the idea that proposed mitigation is, you're already thinking about it, but I don't know if it's actually going to work or not. So board members, again, I don't see you on my screen right now. Anybody want to voice up?
Rob,
Mr. Baker.
I've heard some rumors and some truth that there's a study going on for Hingham Street from Reservoir to the northbound on-ramp to increase the lanes from Commerce Road to Reservoir with designated right and left turn lanes and sidewalks all the way up to the park and ride.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Is there, and again, I know at this point it's hearsay, conjecture, whatever you want to call it.
It's under review.
Do you have is there anything that can be substantiated or potentially forwarded?
There's nothing on paper.
There's nothing on paper at this point?
No.
Mr. Chair, can I respond to that if I may?
Who's talking to Mr. Bandini? Yes, please.
Correct. Yes. So, as part of the traffic study, we like to gather a lot of information for potential planned projects and future roadway improvements.
Tell me you heard about this.
This was done as part of the Union Point final environmental impact report.
Okay.
That we researched as part of the study for this project. At the time, there was no sort of substantial timeline given for the project, but I believe the FEIR for the Union Point project did outline some potential level of mitigation in the section that Mr. Baker referred to. Now, the extent of those improvements, I can't speak to.
Mm-hmm.
Speak to the timeline or implementation of that, because I know, a lot of that potential mitigation was going to be based on how quickly the Union Point development could be built out. And I know that they've had some issues, and I know that the Delaware Parkway was, completed within the last few years. So I know there probably has been some additional steam that's built up from that. The extent, I'm not certain at this point. If that development team has, reached the point where they're talking about, implementing additional mitigation along the Hingham Street section.
Understood. I appreciate that.
Rob,
Mr. Baker.
As you know, I work for the highway department, and there is talk with a developer off of Hingham Street for a big project to go in there. And that was this discussion is they're looking into the sidewalks and curbing and the mitigation that Southfield is supposed to start with.
All right. Mr. Galvin, do you have any knowledge of this?
Can you hear me now?
Attorney Galvin, yes, I hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. Well, there's two things that I could probably comment on and that I have knowledge about, and I'll tell you what that knowledge is and where it comes from. Number one, I represent the Southfield Redevelopment Authority. And I can tell you that the former master developer, L-Star Southfield, defaulted and was terminated by the Southfield Redevelopment Authority as the master developer. Much of the land was foreclosed by one of the leading lenders there. The lender and the Southfield Redevelopment Authority developed an RFP for a new master developer. And last January, they made arrangements with Brookfield Properties and New England Development as a partnership to become the new master developer. And only recently, within the last couple of months, is there any arrangements or a conceptual agreement between them whereby Brookfield Properties and their new entity would acquire the land from Washington Capital, which is the manager of the foreclosing lender. They are redesigning the site once they reach agreements, but any of the mitigation that was previously promised by L-Star Southfield is not going to be coming. So it doesn't mean that there won't be improvements with the new master developer, but they're years away. The other project that's relevant here is A.W. Perry owns, and I'm just estimating, and don't hold me to the estimate, a few hundred acres of land that stretches from Rockland into Hingham.
It's about right.
Is that right, Judy?
That's about right. Yep.
Okay. I would say probably 80% of the land is in Rockland, but not all of it. They're proposing, and the town is currently studying with the MAPC, a new overlay district that will permit by right a couple 100,000 or more square feet of residential and commercial space. Could be even larger than that. There will be obviously some traffic impacts from that project. And I know from a meeting that occurred last week that it's likely that they'll be in touch with the future master developer at Southfield. The bottom line is there's going to be two very large projects, some of which will have traffic on this corridor, both likely to be sometime within the next 5 years or longer.
Chairman Rosa, could I speak on that subject? I was on the Citizen Advisory Committee for 6.5 years for the redevelopment of South Weymouth, and I have all the studies, traffic, water, sewer, environmental, etc. I have the FEIR.
Mary Parsons, you can say whatever you want.
Well,
Okay.
I think we're
No,
getting
no,
away
hold
from-
on, Mr. Baker. Ms. Parsons was in the
I
process.
think we're getting away from where we're supposed to be. We're not
What?
talking about Southfield. We're talking about.
No,
Thank
I'm
you.
talking about traffic study that has to do with Hingham Street and all of those roads. This has to do with Hingham Street. And Mr. Rosa, it's not 228. 228 is only in Hingham. It's
I
Hingham Street
understand.
in Rockland and Pond Street in Norwell.
I
Now,
absolutely understand.
okay, I have in front of me, February 28th, 2017. This was done for an environmental assessment. It's also a notice of project change, but it was done by Epsilon Associates for Union Point, which happened to be L-Star, but right now it has Hingham Street north of Route 123. It's telling me the traffic count, okay? The actual average daily traffic is 12,479 vehicles. This is pre-COVID. Hingham Street north of Commerce Road is 21,201 vehicle trips, okay?
Ms. Parsons, can I interrupt you for 2 seconds? I apologize. Have you had a chance to see this traffic study, the current traffic study?
Who did the current traffic study?
We got one from Gill and Associates, and I'm sorry with the
McMahon.
And
McMahon Associates.
and McMahon Associates. We have two current traffic studies. Is there any chance that you can get a copy of that and compare that to what you have right now?
If you can put it up on your town page by email, so I can see it, because although L-Star has defaulted, the actual certificate from 2007, which has 54,000 vehicle trips, okay,
Yeah.
in this area, is still active.
What I'd like to do for you is I'd like to get you a copy of both traffic studies so you can do a comparison.
Right.
Unfortunately, I'm looking at this and we're talking about 2007. That's
No, we're talking about 2017.
okay, 2017. It's still, again, I know it's pre-COVID, but it's still a little bit out of date. So it's, and I'm not, and I understand what you're saying, but I'd like you to do a comparison with the current traffic studies. That way you, at least that way you can see it. And again, I don't mean to interrupt you, but we're dealing, unfortunately, we have to look at the current traffic studies, but I'd like.
And it's this done by the town's engineer.
Right. I'd like to, well,
Who is the town's engineer?
The town's review engineer is Amory Associates, but the town's traffic review engineer is Gill and Associates.
Oh, okay, so it's through Emory.
Yeah, exactly. What I'd like you to do, what I'd like to do is I'd like to get you a copy of both traffic assessments. That way you can do a comparison, and if there is an issue, then we can bring it up at a future meeting. Is that okay?
Is this going to be continued?
Oh yeah.
Mr. Chair, you might want to clarify that the traffic study was done by McMahon for the proponent.
Yeah.
And
For
Amory engineers brought Gillen in to review that work for the town.
Thank you, Judy.
All right, that I understand, because I used to go to a lot of ZBA meetings.
Is there, can we agree that we're going to get you a copy of those traffic studies?
Yes, you're going to.
Oh, believe me, if I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it.
Yes.
All right, I appreciate that. I would like
Same
to.
for water and sewer, because there's issues with water and sewer I have.
Oh, absolutely. Now that I know that these other documents do exist, they're going on the website. So if you're okay with this, I'd like to move on. Is that okay?
Okay. Yep.
Thank you, Ms. Parsons. I do appreciate that.
Chair,
Mr.
when
Baker.
you finish taking comments from your colleagues on the board, can you circle back to the whole pedestrian access issue? Because I do have some comments.
No, I do understand that. Mr. Tanzi, Mr. Haynes, who else is on the board here? Where's Steve? I don't see him on here. Oh, Stephen, you're right there. Any of the other board members or associate board members, are there any comments right now about potential mitigation or the traffic study that's being presented?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is Greg. I always believe that we should have some access on the access road. I mean, sidewalks on the access road to the project. It's only a matter of time before our infrastructure gets updated. And this is nothing unusual. I know, I mean, I do a lot of projects all around, and a lot of times the town will approve a project with a sidewalk going out to the main road, and the developer will ask, well, can I just, the residents don't want it, can I omit it? And a lot of times the boards will say, no, we want it going out to the road, even though there's nothing there, there's no sidewalks there. Sometime in the future, there will be, potentially sidewalks there. I think Pond Street is very ripe for renovation. There's a lot of potential with the commuter lot, cycling to it, walking to it, especially from a development of this size. I think, even without these RFPs and potential infrastructure projects going through, it's just my assessment of that situation is eventually there will be some, infrastructure improvement, and everything is bike paths nowadays. Bike paths are always an integral part of any road widening or infrastructure project. And
Mr. Tanzi, can I interrupt you for 2 seconds? Mr. Andronico, do you have that map of the overhead map showing the different amenities local to the site?
Sure. Let me know when you see the one that you're looking for.
I think you passed it. I'm wondering if because
This one?
again, keep going forward, I think. And I'm talking not the amenities on site. I'm talking the amenities local to the site.
I understand.
I'm wondering if you have a distance. Yeah, something like that. I'm wondering if you have a distance from your access point on Pond Street to the parking ride. That's not too far of a walk for somebody to be able to get a bus.
I don't, but I would make this argument.
Mhm.
Isn't as indicated in the name itself, isn't the purpose of a park and ride to park, to drive there, park and ride?
Oh, absolutely. But I know a lot of people that get dropped off there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's a commuter bus that a lot of people take.
Yeah.
Go into Boston from there.
And again, I'm not saying that it's a quick walk. I'm not saying that it's an easy walk, but you could walk it in not that long of a, you'd probably be able to finish your cup of coffee by the time you get there. So I mean, what I'd like to see is I'd like to see a distance from there. You know what I mean?
I can get you one, and perhaps one of my colleagues on the other line might even be able to do that while we're on the call here. So I'll just put that
I don't have, and unfortunately I got so many
I'm going to
things.
get it here in a second. Hold on.
I've got Erin West. She's pretty handy and pretty quick, so I think she'll
I
be able
just
to
can't pull up Mass GIS that quickly right now. So
Sure, I hear you. So okay, so I hear that. I hear that. The question for me still becomes: is it? Would you feel as though it would still be? I don't know how to put this. Do you think it would still be a great idea to walk down Pond Street? I mean, I know Pond Street pretty well myself.
if there was a sidewalk.
If there was a sidewalk, but I guess is the question. Is the ZBA proposing that the development provide a sidewalk all the way down Pond Street?
I'm not suggesting anything at this point. I'm just saying that
I would tell you right now that would certainly be economically infeasible for me to provide a city sidewalk all the way down Pond Street. That's a pretty long run. I'm just going to be honest with you.
That's why I'm asking for the dimension. That's why I'm asking for the
dimension. I don't want to do it. I just don't think I could do that. It's just that's a major infrastructure project.
This gets to the heart, I think, of what was represented to the subsidizing agencies about the site, because in the site approval application, there's a description of what makes the project a sustainable development. And one of the representations in the site approval packet is that it's walkable. The site is walkable to transit and to retail services at an employment center. And there's a description of what that means. So that's what was portrayed to the subsidizing agencies. And I think that kind of helps to explain why there might be some questions now about, well, if the applicant thought the site was a walkable place and therefore qualified as sustainable development, how do we sort of say that now when it sounds like what you're saying is no one really would walk from this neighborhood anyway? Look at Pond Street, it's a driving neighborhood. So I'm just having trouble reconciling the two representations.
Ms. West, were you able to get that? Were you able to get that dimension?
I have it. It's 685 feet.
That's it?
Yeah.
From their driveway to Hingham Street.
Right.
Okay,
It's,
and then
0.17 miles.
okay.
I
So
can show you an image of the route if you'd like.
It's no, I'm good. I know it. I've never walked it, but that's still less than 2/10 of a mile. Pat's got about 700 feet. Then you got the length of the driveway. Can't remember what the length of the driveway is off the top of my head.
1,000 feet.
About another 700 feet from Pond Street into the first parking area.
All right, so
Behind-
1,400 feet, a 1,400 foot walk. I do that on a site 72 times a day. I mean,
Okay,
it's
so
not,
but I just want to be clear what the ask is. All right, so we will take that into consideration. We're going to revisit what opportunity and what, if it's possible for us to add that sidewalk along that driveway.
and the only reason
But-
why is, again, Judy, Miss Barrett, she raised a very, very good point when it
And-
came to site applicability.
Yeah, and the truth of it is, I can't speak to that because the blunt truth of it is that at that time, Jones Street was not yet involved in the project.
Understood.
We are now, and it's a valid point, and I certainly recognize it, and we'll take some time to consider that at this point.
Okay.
Now, you know, and given and I want to make it clear that we also are here to listen.
Mhm.
So I'm getting the impression that the access down this driveway is certainly important. You know, I came here with my argument and my kind of representation, but I'm hearing yours as well. So I'll make a commitment to revisit the sidewalks along that driveway.
Along the
and see if we-
driveway and yeah.
along the driveway, but I'm going to tell you right now that I can't imagine that it would be economically feasible for me to install a city infrastructure project all the way down Pond Street. However, if there are plans in the future for the city to install that, then it further incentivizes me to install that pedestrian access from my site, because it certainly would be a benefit to my tenants, right? And it would be a benefit to the town. But to commit to a city infrastructure project is something, without running the math, I can probably already tell you is going to be detrimental to the economics of the project.
Right, David, but if they did approve the project and Mass Save could get into it, or Mass Grants could get into it, then, and they could, you know, put public money into allowing these developments, it would have to be something that the city would have to approve this project first. But if they did, they could actually bring money into the town to allow these types of things.
Thank you.
Talking about MassWorks?
Yes.
So there's a potential avenue.
Okay,
So
I like that.
So I'm going to kind of turn my perspective around. I'm going to start thinking this from a different perspective, which is, how do I get sidewalks in that drive lane? And I'm also going to work with Erin, because she's my whiz in the corner there. Although I don't know where she is in your screen. And let us try to see what kind of avenues or sources of funding we might be able to make available to us and the town of Rockland to make this make sense. So if we could, well, let's leave it at that. But I'm going to make a commitment to taking that further.
All right, we have to, that's something that needs to be explored.
We got it.
Rob, if I may,
Why not, Mr. Baker? Bring it on.
has anybody read the report from the highway superintendent?
Let me go back to Miss Barrett. Do you have a copy of that?
From the highway superintendent?
Mr. Brennan, do you have a copy of that? Anybody?
I did read it. It was from March, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's in that folder. That's older stuff.
Yeah.
So
Um,
it's definite-
He's recommending the sidewalks from Hingham Street down to this project and a little bit further down Pond Street.
Right.
Okay, so going back that far, it's already been pretty much thrown down that sidewalks are kind of, we're saying that we want sidewalks out there.
Yeah, here it is. It's right here. Sidewalk, curb ramp, crosswalks, additional pedestrian signage. Yep.
Okay. All right. So it's been on the boat, and it's been on the board for a little while. So and again, I don't want to beat
So
it
the
dead.
applicant has seen that.
All right. And I just, again,
And we acknowledge that we've seen that, and we made an argument the other way. But now I think we're coming to a point where we think that we can find an alternate avenue, and try to find a way to make this work for everybody. So
well said, Mr. Andronico. I don't want to beat a dead horse. So
yeah, we're committed to taking this further and trying to find a solution.
absolute perfect. Mr. Tansey, we talked to you. Mr. Baker, we've heard from you. Mr. Haynes, do you have anything to say about this?
Oh, I just wanted to make two comments. I can't find it at the moment, but somebody in one of our town departments in their letter to us wrote that the agreement to widen and make improvements along Pond Street included those sidewalks. And so I am curious about any agreement the town has to make those Pond Street improvements. But unfortunately, I can't remember which letter that was. And the other question I had about the traffic is, was the traffic study conducted based on the 1.2 cars per unit, or the more reasonable and palatable and likely 2 to 3 cars per unit? So are these traffic counts based on the tiny parking lot?
Jeff, that's probably something you're better suited to respond to than I.
Yeah, permission to answer that question. So the number of trips to and from the site is based on the style of housing. So we use a land use code that generates the number of trips based on the number of units and also the height of the building. So for the specific traffic generation number, we use units, buildings with between 3 and 10 stories. So it's based on the number of units and the style of the proposed residential structure.
All right, so it's not necessarily the number of units that are being proposed at this point.
In other words, it's based on units, it's not based on parking.
Understood.
All right.
Let's see. And now, did you have something? I apologize, Mr.
No,
Angel.
I have a couple more slides, but I don't want to stop people from asking traffic questions. I mean, now it's
I have one more board
Yeah.
member, I think, that didn't get to ask a question. Where's Stephen? Where are you?
I'm here.
Yeah, Mr. Galley, please, if you have any questions at this point, voice it up.
Well, I don't have a question, but I was listening to the conversation about the sidewalks. I'm just going to throw in my 2 cents. Let's beat the dead horse one more time. But I like the idea of having the sidewalks, because the more projects that have sidewalks, and there'll be more incentive for the town of Rockland to continue building or fixing sidewalks. Union Street, they just build up both sides of the street with new sidewalks. It's beautiful. It seems like the town's ready to build more sidewalks. You know, if there were more sidewalks, you know, accessible to this development, it seems like it would encourage future developments to also have sidewalks if they need to build them. Just reinforcing the same message. I think it's good.
No, that's absolutely understood. I appreciate that. But that also means that the town has to buy some sidewalk plows, right, Mr. Baker?
Yep.
Yeah.
And more men.
But I hear you. I appreciate that, and that's why I raised the question on distance down to the parking ride. So I've got all my members. I think everybody's voiced they've voiced their traffic concerns, their walking concerns. Mr. Andronico, please finish your presentation. I apologize.
Sure. No apology. This is exactly why we're doing this. So that brings me kind of to my last slide, and this is meant to, I think, address some of the questions I think that were brought up during the kind of the open period of the meeting last hearing, which is the question is, well, who's going to live here? You know, it's where are they coming from? What do they do? So I did a little research, and this is based on the U.S. Census Bureau, and I put together some stats here in terms of some kind of Rockland housing statistics. So based on the graph that you can see here, so over a quarter of the population of Rockland are renters, 25.5%. Housing stock by unit type. I'm going to kind of run through some stats, and I'll kind of summarize my thoughts and how I connected the dots here at the end of this. And this is relatively quick. So the housing stock in Rockland, as I'm sure most of you know, is overwhelmingly single family or single family attached at 63.4%. 36.6% of that is 2 family, it's 2 to 9. And then only 11.7% is 10 units or more. Annual housing units permitted by building type. So between 2000 and 2018, no units above of 5 units or more were permitted in the town of Rockland, as you can see in the bar graph. And then I want to talk about kind of cost burden, right? Because this is important. We're talking about a 40B project. So cost burden, which I'm sure most of you know, but I'll just throw it out there. So the definition of cost burden is 30% of a household income is put towards housing. Severely cost burden is 50% of that household income being put towards housing. Per the census data, which is taken between 2014 and 2018, 40% of renters in Rockland are currently cost burdened, whether it be severely cost burdened or current cost burdened. You can see the split at 16.6% and 23.5%, compared to homeowners where it is 16.7 and 4%. Monthly cost of housing. I wanted to highlight basically on average what renters are spending a month on housing versus what owners are spending. 50% of renters spend $1,000 to $1,500 a month on housing. And on average, 50% of owners spend $1,500 to $2,500 a month on housing. That's a delta of up to $1,500. Now, you compare that to the gap in monthly income, and that $1,500 gap gets pretty small. 50% of renters make between $25,000 and $75,000 a year, versus 50% of homeowners make $100,000 to $150,000 or more per year, which is a delta of up to $125,000 a year. Now you look at that spread compared to what is spent in housing or for owners versus what is spent for renters, and it's not consistent with what you see here. Now what that tells me is you have a quarter of the population renting. You have low stock in multifamily. So that low stock in multifamily housing, right, it equals higher rents, right? There's low competition in terms of rental units. You have a large gap in household income between renters and owners, making the barriers into home ownership high. So most of these folks don't have an option but to rent. And you have a high percentage of cost burden renters, which says to me that there's a need in Rockland for affordable housing. And to me, that answers the question of who's going to live here. And I would say that it's your neighbors. It's the residents of Rockland currently. We're not relying on people coming from other towns or the cities or moving here to work. Based on the data that I've just unrolled, and I'm no statistician by any means, it tells me that there is an immediate need in the town of Rockland now for the folks who already live there. So that pretty much concludes our presentation. And at this point, we can go back to any slide you want and talk about any of those topics. I give the floor to the board now.
Okay, I'm gonna throw it right back out to the board then. I'm gonna go by order here. Mr. Tanzi, I see you first. Got anything to say?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the 1.8 parking ratio, and our bylaw is 3 spaces per unit. I didn't think that's a little bit high. I've said that before, but I've seen other bylaws where they've graduated the parking requirement based upon the type of unit. And usually a studio, although maybe one person is living there, doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be one car there, all the time. Young professionals, yeah, but people have living, girlfriends, boyfriends, they have boyfriends, whatever. They could even have a married couple in a studio temporarily. And this has been my concern all along about this project, and it pretty much echoes what the fire and the police are saying about access. I have a concern about double parking, or just parking off to the side of the street or access way. I think something less than 2 spaces per unit. I don't think it's safe, and I've got a safety concern there, and I've had that all along. And I think the Rockland police in the fire department are echoing that concern.
Absolutely.
If I might just interject, it should be noted that the comments that the fire department and the police department They made those comments not on this plan that I presented you today. I just think it's important that everyone recognize that.
Right. And the other thing is the roof, I favor the gable roof over the flat roof, but the highest amount of floors, is my understanding in Rockland, is 4 floors. I would like to see this project be capped at a 4-story building instead of a 5-story building, because I mean, seeing it from Hingham Street, it's just, I mean, it's two large buildings, and you know, it really needs to be hidden, I think, better from a distance as far away as Hingham Street. And I just like to keep it more in line with what's in Rockland. I mean, these are very, very huge residential buildings. And I really would like to see it capped off at 4 floors rather than 5.
If I might respond.
Please.
So I will start with the parking. So as I noted here on our first option for the parking, which is the option we prefer, barring we can bring some clarity to the paper street issue, it brings us to a 1.93 parking ratio, which is—
Mr. Andronico, is there any way you can zoom into that and make that parking area bigger?
Geez, I'm not sure if I can zoom in PowerPoint. It seems not.
Okay.
Oh, it looks like I can.
Rock and roll, sir.
Wow. You learn something new every day.
I like that.
In any case, this affords us a 1.93 parking ratio, which is nearly 2 per unit. And now I certainly agree that we could have a couple of scenarios where a studio is occupied by more than one person and there may be 2 cars. But I also think that it would be fair to assume that most studios, and certainly a fair number of 1-bedrooms, would likely only have 1 car, which I think it lends itself to, in essence, spare spaces. I don't think it would be unreasonable to assume either one of those things. So that being said, at a 1.9 ratio, you virtually have 2 parking spaces for every single studio, every single 1-bedroom. So I still feel confident with that 1.9. And I will say that, you know, we came here today from a 1.25 to a 1.93. I think that shows a considerable effort. And quite frankly, I think that's a very appealing ratio for any development. That's my response to the parking.
Can we ask you one question on that?
Absolutely.
Would you be willing to put in a restriction that 1-bedrooms and studios only get 1 parking space?
Absolutely, we would. And we typically would do that anyway.
Can I just also add that I think that even if there are 2 people, if they're really pushing themselves into a studio, that means they are even more cost burden, and having 2 cars would also, they'd be cost prohibitive from having 2 cars, because they are already cost prohibitive from having a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom. These aren't people who can just have 3 cars because they have the money. These are people who need this type of establishment.
It would be an affordable, a 40B studio apartment. So I think the point is the likelihood of there being more than 1 car in a studio or even a 1-bedroom is not impossible, but unlikely. And I think that you could kind of run your analysis based on those assumptions. I think that would be fair to say.
So these people can't afford 2 cars? Is that what Miss West is saying?
Excuse me, ma'am. I see a Jesse. I need name and address for the record.
Jacina Noun, 2 Winter Circle, Rockland.
Okay, I'm assuming Kim got that. I apologize, ma'am. This is really not the time for public interjection, but I will entertain.
So I would respond to that and say that I think what we're saying is that the likelihood of all of our studios being 2-car residents is not likely, based on who is likely to be renting a studio apartment in a 40B. It's a reasonable assumption to make that this would be a 1-car unit. Additionally, to Mr. Ross's point, we will likely be limiting the number of spaces per the type of unit, which is something that we typically do at all of our properties, and frankly, most property owners do.
And
Especially
Jesse, I apologize. I don't have your last name up here, but I'd like to, I wanted to give you the opportunity to voice your opinion there. Did you have a question?
Yeah, my question was for Miss West to explain what her reasoning was. It sounded like she was saying that someone who lived in a 40B, whether it was two people or not, that they wouldn't be able to afford to have two cars.
Miss West, can you expound on what you were talking about?
If I might, Erin,
Go ahead.
I think the point that we're trying to make, and I'll reiterate, forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but the likelihood of a studio apartment renter to have more than one vehicle is I think relatively small. In addition to that factor, as Mr. Rossa noted, we would likely be putting restrictions on the number of spaces allowed for each unit based on the rental agreement itself. So in a scenario where someone is renting a 40B studio apartment, the likelihood of that being a two-car unit is much lower than it would be in perhaps another scenario. That being said, we can make the assumption that most of our studio units and even our one-bedroom units, even if you just said less than half would not be two-car units, we have a 1.9 space per unit ratio, which allows us, and I'll call it spare spaces. So I don't think that we're going to be in a situation where we're going to be to the gills, because that would require every single studio and every single one bedroom to have two vehicles in addition to the 2s and 3s. And that would be an unfair assumption to make.
If you were going to put that within the rental agreement, that every studio and every one bedroom is only allotted one parking space per unit, that helps.
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
I gotta think a lot of one bedrooms would have two cars. Maybe the 1.93 covers that, and I could see the studio having one, but I gotta see a lot of one bedrooms. A lot of them could have two residents who each need a car, and regardless of how little money they have, they need a car to get to work.
Yeah, I agreed. Listen, this is not about how much money they have and how many cars they can afford. That's really not the point that we're making.
Yeah, but I'm just saying the idea that because they're renting a one bedroom doesn't really explain that they might only have one car. If it's two people, that could be two adults. They both have to drive to work separately. They're not sharing a car all the time.
I totally agree. And again, that's not the point that we're making. The point that we're making is that the likelihood of every single one bedroom and every single studio needing two cars is statistically very unlikely.
Yeah,
in addition to that, there would be provisions in the leasing agreements that would prohibit a certain amount of units to, or limit a certain amount of units or a certain unit type to a specific amount of parking spaces.
That right there kind of alleviates the issue. And I'm not saying 100%, but at least it shows that the applicant is thinking that far ahead. Because
so can I just ask for clarification, David? Are you saying that the lease agreement for those smallest units would limit the tenant to one car, or that the project is only guaranteeing one parking space per unit? What does the lease actually say?
We haven't written the leases. We don't have a project.
But you have other developments, David.
But we have other developments where a specific unit type would specify you are allowed one parking space or two parking spaces, depending on the unit size. And then that may vary. We may designate 80% of one bedrooms are allowed two spaces and 20% are allowed one space.
Because what I usually see is that a one bedroom unit is guaranteed one space, but not that they're prohibited from having two. It's just that they're only guaranteed one space. That's what I usually see. It's not a prohibition to having two cars. It's that we're not guaranteeing you two spaces.
And I think that would probably be a better way to put it. So I think it's just the kind of the vernacular we choose. And I don't write the leases, thank God, because I don't think we lease many properties. But that is something that we do on a regular basis. We own 14 other communities, and that is a very consistent strategy that we use.
I mean, in fairness to the developer, Mr. Chair, I mean, that is a higher ratio, the 1.8 or 9. You get up that high, that's higher than I see in a lot of 40Bs. So I just want to be fair to the applicant. The difference is that this one doesn't have good walkable access to anything.
Absolutely.
So, you tend to, you have to think about what's the market for this, what is this product going to be marketable to, and who's going to want to be here? Well, I may not care if I have a parking space. If I know I can walk down the street to a supermarket or to CVS or whatever. But you're representing yourself that this is not going to be a walkable place. This is really a driving neighborhood. So my concern for you is you may have a different tenant mix here than some of the other developments that you have.
And I agree. And I think that you make some good points, which is why I think we're going to double down our effort to find a way to make that work.
Okay.
And to Aaron's point, perhaps we can find some state dollars, to augment Pond Street itself and augment the walkability of this project. It's not just because we want to get the project approved, it's because some good points are made. And I think that it warrants some further analysis and a deeper dive on our part to try to find a way to make it a more walkable property.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, Mr. Brennan, I apologize.
Just one thing before we leave the screen. I believe the majority of that parking area in the basketball court cannot be built. That's within the 100-foot vernal pool buffer zone.
I wondered about that.
Well, again, this is a conceptual. This is just an overlay on a PDF, right? We wanted to get the feedback on this, so then we could further develop that plan. We have engineering to be done.
Yeah, I mean, you cannot touch a 100-foot vernal pool buffer. So I just want to put that out there just so that, just so everybody's aware of it.
Pat, touching on that, can I ask a question? You were involved in that other one, the Lydia Square one, weren't you?
Yes.
Okay. Wasn't there a vernal pool out there?
Yeah, I believe there was.
Okay. So
it was more than 100 feet away from any of their work.
All right. But the last I knew, they were talking about moving that vernal pool. And based on the Army Corps of Engineers, I heard that you can move a vernal pool. Is that
No.
That I'm not aware of.
I know that came up, and I know that came up at some point. I wasn't involved in any of the ZBA meetings for that, but I remember that coming up from the wetland scientist. And I don't know if that ever, I don't know if that ever went anywhere, but I remember that the wetland scientist brought that up and said, per the Army Corps of Engineers, you could move that to another portion of the town.
Would that be some kind of mitigation thing, Pat, where you sort of, you replicate, but, at like 5 times the area that you're disturbing?
I think that's what he was leading towards that, but I don't think it ever got there.
I'd have to look into that because the vernal pools are so protected under the Wetland Protection Act. They basically say you cannot touch anything within 100 feet of them. So, I mean, I'll look into it and see if there's a way to mitigate that, to move it. But I've personally never heard of it.
Okay, because that vernal pool is going to create a major problem here.
I mean, was the other vernal pool certified? Because this one is. So that's another thing.
The other one was going through certification at that point, and I don't know if it ever did get certified, because again, I wasn't a part of it. So
that's different.
So I do not know.
All right, that's fine. Thanks.
Again, this is conceptual plans. Let us do our due diligence.
Absolutely.
We'll certainly not present a plan that is unachievable.
How you doing?
Absolutely.
And I would like to just respond to Mr. Tanzi's comment on the building height. So I certainly appreciate the comment. I guess I would ask the question as to what specific problem is being created by the height of the buildings. And I would also state that lopping off 2 floors of my development would again probably render the project economically infeasible. So I guess aside from the way it looks, is this a significant problem that would warrant, I would say, the rejection of, I think, a pretty sizable project and a pretty sizable contributor to tax revenue for the town of Rockland? I mean, just would love a little more depth on that opinion.
Well, first of all, I was talking about a 4-story from 5 to down to a 4. So I wasn't talking about lopping off 2 floors.
Well, it would be a floor off each building. It would be a significant amount of units.
Okay. the height would be limited to a 4-story building. And it would be better hid underneath the tree line from Hingham Street. And Hingham Street is pretty far away. And you know, just to see all that mass of building area, it's just not in line with the surroundings. It's really isn't compatible with the residential neighborhood that's around it. There's a lot of smaller homes, and yeah, I just think it would be a lot more attractive. I think there'd be less of a visual impact on the community. And like I said, I'm not aware of any 5-story units or buildings. My understanding is that the tallest buildings are limited to 4 floors, and I'd just like to see that in line with what we have in the community.
If I may, so when we talked about sidewalks and creating connectivity to the community, there was talks about encouraging further development to do the same and activating the neighborhood and bringing in development and some other projects that are being proposed, or maybe in some degree of flux and maybe online in the next 4 to 5 years. I would say that if that is truly the intention of the community of Rockland, it's going to be difficult to limit that to 4-story developments. And I would say that if you're looking to make this kind of the kicking off point to creating more connectivity and more activation of the community, that you probably want to kind of accept the fact that you may see more communities or make more developments like this in Rockland, and prohibiting down to 4 stories is probably going to make that not only difficult for me, but difficult for future development and future activation of this particular area of Rockland. And again, I will call out to the fact that what you're basically asking me to do is lose 2 complete stories of 9 development, to which the only alternative of that would be go subterranean, of which I think has been represented in our underground parking analysis, would certainly also be cost prohibitive. And not only that, but I'm sure that Davis Square would agree that subterranean units are not necessarily appealing to prospective tenants.
I still think, I mean, Rockland has been very generous with the comprehensive permit projects. We've been very generous with all kinds of things that a lot of towns have rejected, anywhere from cell towers to 40Bs. And every 40B project, there's always some negotiation, and it's not uncommon for some downscaling to accommodate and to be acclimated to the community. And I mean, I'm seeing what this project looks like from a very far distance, and I think it can be scaled back, and limiting it to what is already in the town. I don't think that is an unreasonable request.
I would argue that it is, because I know that you think it could be scaled down, but that opinion isn't based in any kind of financial analysis of the project and what would be economically feasible. And that is a major component of the 40B and this project. So from a visual standpoint, it's not as simple as just dropping the height of the building. There's significant cost and loss of revenue and loss of available units that are associated with that effort.
Well, we haven't seen a pro forma.
Right, and I committed to sharing that with you, which I think will make the point that I just made evident.
And the cost of the land can be renegotiated if it had to. There are things that we can look at, but one of the major things with zoning is you know, does it fit in with the natural surroundings of the town? And I just, this is the first time that I'm aware of that we have a 5-story building in the town of Rockland, and it's, you know, the whole usable upland area of this site is either building, parking, drainage, and then there's a little bit of recreation. And I appreciate your, you know, your efforts with the recreation. That was an improvement, and I give you credit for that. And I hope that it can be done. I hope the vernal pool isn't a killer. But, you know, part of our job here is to make sure that we've got the best feasible project that we can get and have livability and scalability. There's an awful lot of units going in that site. Even at 4 stories, there's an awful lot of units that's going into that into the site. So
I guess at the end of the day, it is now my responsibility to share our economic analysis with you and prove out our position. So I hear you loud and clear. Ball in my court now to kind of prove out my response to that.
All right, the dead horse has been beaten. This is what I want to do right now. Hold
Can
on.
I jump in?
No, right now I need to, my building inspector has been patiently sitting here listening to everything.
I have some questions too. Rob.
I understand, but I want to hear from, assuming he's
Everybody
still
else
here.
has talked.
Mr. Baker, you spent a lot of time talking tonight, so I want to hear from people that haven't spoken. Mr. Rubel, are you still here? If Mr. Rubel is not here, then what I want to do is I want to go back to Mr. Galvin. He's also been sitting here patiently. So if Mr. Galvin, if you have anything to say at this point, I'd like to hear it.
The only thing I think that it might make sense to hear from the developer about tonight is the design review. You know, what you've been shown tonight are some, you know, significantly sized buildings that are fairly, you know, I mean, you make up your own mind as what you see, and, you know, I think Judy could probably summarize what we've got back from the peer review consultant, but you know, I think it makes sense to hear from the developer about that and maybe Judy about that. And I really think you should probably try to take a little bit of public comment because I think anything that I mean, there's a lot of people on this line that have waited, probably want to say something.
Absolutely.
And obviously we're not going to finish tonight. There's going to be some further plans and we can pick another date with Mr. Andronico at the end, but it might be helpful to touch on those 2 issues and get a little bit of public comment. And then, you know, you can promise the people that, you know, there'll be another opportunity if you don't get heard tonight.
Absolutely. Mr. Baker, I do want to give you your chance. So please step up, say what you need to say, but please make it quick.
Only a couple of things, Rob.
Yep.
One is the supplement parking area.
Yep.
Has that property been Form A to the building area or the old junkyard?
At this point, I'm going to tell you that it probably has not.
Okay, we cannot have off-site parking.
Wait, well, I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear the question.
He's asking if the 152 Wilson Street has been basically through the A&R process attached to the 0 Pond Street property. And based on the drawings that you continue to show, it has not been.
I can confirm that.
Rob, it doesn't have to be A&R to the site. If the applicant owns that site and it abuts this site, they can provide an 81X plan that shows what they own, and it's one lot.
Exactly. That's absolutely understood. The other problem is that it is that it's residential, and I don't know if that presents a problem. It's specifically residential. If it's attached to this piece of property, then that's one thing. And I hear where Mr. Baker is going, but right now it's a detached, as far as I can tell, it's a detached piece of property. And they would have to, as Attorney Galvin said, they would have to go through the A&R process to formally attach this to the property to make it work. So that's question number one. Next.
The other question is Cedar Street is supposedly a paper street. I have had to work in that area, and there is no way that is a street. There are trees growing there that are 3 and 4 feet round.
It's a private way.
Never been a street.
Right, it's a private way.
It's nothing.
Okay, it's a private, but it still comes down to
Frankly,
ownership.
we don't want it to be a street. So
Right.
No one owns it. And I think if we ever try to allow you to tie those 2 streets in, the people on those streets would hang us.
No.
The other question is, would that parking lot have access out through Wilson Street?
I can answer that myself. No, it won't.
no, and that's showing on the plans that it does not.
Absolutely not, and I wouldn't allow it.
I wouldn't either.
The only reason we showed that alternate plan, if there was some provision that we couldn't block that way for some reason, even though we know that you don't want access through Wilson.
No.
We
No.
like plan A rather than plan B.
No, it's, and again, you guys, your team still has to do their due diligence when it comes to not necessarily ownership. I can probably tell you who owns it, but the problem is who has rights to it.
That's what we're trying to determine. It's the rights. It's not ownership. It's the rights.
It still comes down to, it's a private way. It comes down to who has rights to it and who would be willing to sign away their rights to it. And I'll be honest with you, there aren't a lot of people that will probably do that. But you guys need to explore that, and that's understood. Mr. Baker, I'm not trying to hurry you up, but.
No, that's all I had.
Okay. Mr. Galvin, we talked to you. Mr. Rubel is not here. Judy, one last time. You got anything?
Yes, sir, I do.
Please, ma'am.
I think before people start throwing pro formas around, the way this process is supposed to work is that the board kind of decides what is it about the project that you want to instruct the applicant to change? What is it that you want to see different? The applicant gives you a pro forma that addresses those changes. And it shows, I can do it. By gosh, I can and I will. Or what you're asking me to do is going to make my project uneconomic. Doesn't matter what the pro forma is for this thing right now. It's what you want to, what you think you want to approve. And so the burden then shifts to the applicant to say, I can do that, or no, I can't. Once you get that pro forma in from the applicant that addresses what you want to change, that's what goes out for peer review. So, you know, we need to kind of, if this is going in this direction, which I wish it wouldn't, but if it is, then we need to be finding a peer review consultant who can look at a pro forma from the applicant. But I wouldn't encourage the applicant to go give the board some pro forma now. It doesn't mean anything. What matters is what the board wants the applicant to do. And the applicant then either gets to say, I'm with you, board, I'll make these changes, it's no problem, or what you're asking me to do will make my project uneconomic.
So what you're saying is we need to wrangle this in. We need to tell the applicant exactly what we want them to change.
Yep.
They need to provide us a performer that tells us basically whether they can or can't do it financially.
Correct, Mr. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, I think then basically, and if you want to lay it down, we want 4 floors. We want a sidewalk that goes all the way down the causeway. We want a sidewalk that goes all the way out to Hingham Street.
If what would be helpful is if you could identify specifically the sidewalk on Pond Street that you guys are looking for. If it's both sides of the street, is it from our point just to Hingham? Is it both ways, like fire department? So if someone could just send me a memo, even if it's a simple bullet point of these.
I'll draft you a plan. How do you like that? I'll draft you a plan.
Whatever you're willing to do, I'd love to, because that really helped me identify. I don't want to guess. I want to make sure I'm very clear on what you're asking me for.
Well, I think maybe, Rob, you might want to make sure that, like, if you're saying you want it brought down to 4 stories, is that kind of the sense of the board?
I'll pull the board right now if you want.
That would be my recommendation.
I'm polling the board right now. Mr. Tanzi, I already know your answer. Mr. Haynes, where are you? Did he drop? Oh, there he is.
I'm right here.
How do you feel about 5 stories versus 4 stories?
I do not have an objection to the height of the building.
Okay.
My issue with the building is the number of units relative to the feasible parking spaces, given fire lanes and other requirements, proximity to wetlands. So for me, it's not an issue of height. So
Well said, sir. I appreciate that. Mr. Baker, how do you feel?
4 stories.
4 stories. Who else do we got? We got Baker, we got Haynes, we got myself, we got Grega. So we got 3 people for 4 stories. While you're not a voting member, Mr. Galley, and I know this is the first time you've actually really seen this project.
Yeah.
So what's your flavor?
Well, just by the conceptual art, the 5th story, it might look a little, city, but I think 4 stories seems reasonable. But I'd really like to, I'd rather like to see what the 5 stories would look like from other angles as well, because would the trees be that thick, or would they be a little bare once the property's built up? Because if the trees get bare between Home Depot and the residential lot, it might actually look worse.
It really comes down to if it's pine trees or if it's deciduous trees. And my gut feeling is, based on our site walk that we saw out there, it's a mixture of both. And I'm not going to say 50-50, but I mean, it's definitely a mixture of both style trees. So again, I appreciate the comments. It's really hard to tell, but the other way to do it is look at Mass GIS, and the Mass GIS aerial pictures give you a good sense of what kind of tree is out there, because they usually take their pictures during the winter. So you'll see what's happening with deciduous trees. So that's one thing to look at. So again, we've polled the board. From what I can gather, 4 stories is more preferable. Again, sidewalks, we're talking sidewalks. Down Causeway, we're definitely talking sidewalks. Down Pond Street, I will put together whether it's a draft, whether it's a memo, whether it's a plan, whatever it takes, I'll put that together. And then based on that, we can get a pro forma. We can review everything. You can talk to us as to whether it's going to work or it's not going to work. And then we go from there.
And listen, if it works, happy day for me too.
No, I dig it. I absolutely understand. One other question I have for the board. Do you like the design? Do you like it? Do you like it? Do you love this place? Would you want to live there? It's going to be a different mix of people that are living here. Me personally, I don't like an apartment. I've had an apartment for a good portion of my life. I like my house, but that's me. Do you like the look of it? I don't particularly have any problem with it, other than the 5th story. I like the flat roof. All right, it's honestly, it reminds me of college. It reminds me of, just with all the amenities that are within the building, it reminds me of living in a dormitory. It's pretty cool. And from a young, just out of college, got my first job out of college, I'm making, $62,000 a year or something like that. I can barely afford a car. I can barely afford insurance. I kind of like it. It does have it's got a stale kind of look to it, but I don't mind that. But that's me. That's absolutely me. I want to hear the board. Mr. Tanzi, what do you like? What do you don't like? And don't talk to me about stories. I already know that.
No. I like the gable roofs. I like the way they've made an attempt to break up the facade. What I really am less what I like least about it is the size, and just given the location next to a fairly significant neighborhood that's significant, that where the houses in the neighborhood are dwarfed by the project. A high concentration of traffic in an area that receives a high concentration of traffic. But, sidewalks will go a long way to mitigate that too. So in a nutshell, that's what I like. That's, my major, what I don't like.
Still really comes down to the height.
Yeah, and the height would, I see the height as being a safety feature as well, because it's going to free up some of the parking. We don't know if we're going to have the conceptual parking is going to be feasible that's next to the vernal pool. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but that's something that factors in.
No, I absolutely appreciate it. And the sheer fact that the once you lop off, and again, if you lop off the top level and bring it down to 4 stories, in the end, it decreases the angle of the ladder that's going to be needed by the fire department around the backside of the building to get to the 4th floor.
Right. Yeah, there's some safety issues as well as aesthetic issues with the height.
I understand it, Mr. Tansey. Thank you very much. Mr. Haynes, talk to me. What do you like? What don't you like?
Well, my comments remain. My issues are, how close we are to the wetlands, and my issues are about parking and accessibility. Design-wise, we have a design review consultant, and the problems that they identified about the building have more to do with the tightness of the tightness of the buildable area, requiring some pretty severe architecture, and so I just, their comments are we'll let those stand.
All right, so you're gonna default to Cliff's to Cliff.
I'm punting because my issues with it are just more related to the wetlands and the parking.
No, I understand it. I mean, it really comes down to how squished into a small area that everything is.
That's really where all the issues come from. And
all right,
I'd like to see some solutions to those.
If I could ask a question, how do I translate that into something that I can then price and build into my pro forma? I can't as well take every single one of Davis Square's recommendation and just price that, because it contradicts some of the other comments that we just made. There's no clear path for me to build a project conceptually and put this to a pro forma. And it's not, I'm not even disputing the opinions. I have to take something and draw it and price it and put it in a pro forma. And it's getting a little loose formed, and I'm not sure how I could do that.
I don't want to have to go back to the design consultants, the design review consultants letter, and again, piece it, pull each and every single comment out and have to look at that.
Well, I don't think we have a response to it. Maybe there is, and I haven't seen it, but that's the whole reason he's not on the call tonight, is that we don't have a response to his report.
Yes, there is. I sent a response. Yes, we responded to Davis Square's comments on the 9-4 package.
When did you send those out?
I sent those out yesterday.
Okay.
Okay, so that's not necessarily within everybody's packet at this point.
Oh God, no, I don't have that.
Okay.
Right, but the point I'm making is, if the commentary is everything Davis Square thinks is wrong with the project, I'm just paraphrasing, I'm not trying to mock anything, is what we don't like about the project. There are many recommendations within that review package that are contradictory to each other. It's, you could do this or you could do this. How do I take that and design a project? What I think what I really need is, I guess what I'm asking for is for the board to review the comments that were made by their peer reviewers.
Okay.
Select the items that are important to them and say, yeah, we agree with this, this, and this. Do this.
I don't think there's contradiction in this memo. I think he's giving you suggestions. It's the ball's
Right.
in your court. The ball's in your court to respond to those suggestions.
Yes, and we did that, is what I'm saying. We did.
Okay, well, I got.
And much of that is in this presentation. Much of this presentation is based on our response to Davis Square. So we've done that.
Okay, that wasn't apparent to me from what I saw, so that's fine.
Rob, one of the
Mr.
big
Baker.
things, one of the big problems I have is this is a major project going up there. And we are getting things faxed to us the day before the meeting.
Listen, if I may, the last time we had a hearing, everyone made a commitment to timelines, and I didn't receive most of the comments until today. So I've done my very best to accommodate your timeline, but you have to acknowledge the fact that we've not received comments and have not had much time at all to respond to them. In
And
fact,
I
the responses
absolutely-
that we did provide were lightning fast. So
And I
have to defend myself
absolutely,
on that.
I absolutely agree with you. I absolutely 100% agree with you. I am not, it's, again, a lot of this falls on us. And I'm gonna say that in public meeting. A lot of this falls on us. You have done what you could do with the information that you were forwarded. I appreciate that. I know that.
And I know you do. I just had to say that I had to
No,
defend
vent.
myself.
I know. I understand. No, you had to vent. I get it. I did. No, I
Well, it's not a
absolutely.
vent. You just wanted to make it clear.
No, I dig it. Mr. Baker, he is right, though. He is right.
No, I understand. But what?
So and I appreciate, and I absolutely do appreciate what you're saying, Mr. Baker, because that is something that as a board, we have complained.
He's asking us to tell him what we want.
Mhm.
We can't do that because we just got the stuff yesterday, just like him.
Well, it's really just the 9-4 package, though. I mean, that's really what we want your commentary on. It's the September 4th package.
Right.
Which we got yesterday.
You've had since September 4th.
Well, having met with the staff, some of the staff yesterday with Mr. Brennan, I think part of the problem is that when you submit a 378-page PDF, that the town of Rockland doesn't have the capacity to print out and distribute, then it's very difficult for the town staff to review the documents. And
Yeah,
so,
I would agree, but we also provided all of the hard copies and all of the formats that were requested of us.
and I can't comment on what the distribution is inside town hall. I just know that the town staff did not have what they needed to do the review, which is why we had a meeting with them yesterday.
But all I can tell you is that I was directed to drop off the material at Candy's house. And I took a picture of the documents on her front porch and confirmed with Candy that she received them. I've been in communication with her all along. I don't know what happened to them, but I can tell you, and I think I can also confirm that we did deliver the material as requested.
That's fine. You know, and I'm not going to debate that, but some of this stuff you have had for a while. And I mean, you had Davis Square's comments back at the last hearing. And
Well,
now, if you gave comments back to that yesterday, I accept that. I haven't seen them, but I think that packet could have been responded to a couple of weeks ago.
Well,
All right,
our hope
people,
was.
Stop. We're going to stop this right now. There's no reason to keep going back and forth. He said, she said, you should have done this. This is not helpful.
I agree, and that's not what I'm trying to do.
No, and I understand that. I absolutely understand that. And Judy, I appreciate what you're saying. You know I do. But unfortunately, this is not helpful at this point. What we have to do is we have to look at the comments from Davis on the 9-4 revision. We have to look at that. And basically, I'm gonna task the board with looking at this, and the board is going to get me their opinions. I'm going to put it together in some sort of memo, plan, whatever it is, and I'm personally going to get it to you. So you can see this and we can put a pro forma together and just take it to the next level, because everybody is, and all the residents that are sitting online right now, they all want to say one thing. They don't want it. They don't want this project for some reason or another. So before I open this up to the townspeople that have been patiently waiting, I just want you to know that there is a lot of opposition, which you already know. And I'm not saying
aware.
you don't know this. There is a lot of opposition to this. And it's not necessarily from the departments within the town, because we recognize that one way or another, this 40B is going in. There's nothing that we can do. All right. If you don't agree with what we condition you with, you can just take it to the state. We know this. We understand this. But I like the idea of what you're utilizing the property for. Do I like the design 100%? No, but you're willing to work with us. You want to work.
Without
So
a doubt.
what I
We
want
want you to like it. We don't want to go to the state.
Exactly.
We want to prove at this level.
No, and that's why we're here. That's why we're here, to talk about this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you, so I can start to see everybody that's still on the line here. I'm going to ask you to unshare your screen so I can recognize anybody that does want to speak. But anybody within anybody of the general public, first and foremost, you need to understand that this meeting is being recorded. So anything that you say is it's on your own. That's number one. Number two, I would encourage you to not beat a dead horse. I want to go home. So if anybody wants to say something other than what we've already been discussing, if they want to bring up a different topic, if they want to bring up something different that hasn't been, again, explained and gone back and forth over hours, I encourage you, please step up.
Can I speak, Mr. Rossa?
Mr. Ronan, go for it.
280 Turner Road. 280 Turner Road, Patrick Ronan.
Thank you, sir.
Been waiting very patiently. Thank you. I won't take up too much of your time. Can I ask for an environment impact report, or have you done one yet?
We have done one, and it has been reviewed by Mr. Brennan. So perhaps Mr. Brennan can elucidate his findings.
Who paid for that?
We did. We've paid for all of these studies.
Can we have an
including traffic.
independent? Can we have an independent one done, Mr. Rossa?
You had a review.
Fred, first and foremost, it's Rosa.
Rosa,
Second
I'm
of all-
sorry.
Second of all,
Apologies.
it is an independent. It
Okay.
is an independent review that was done by the, quite honestly,
Brennan.
best review engineer I know.
Okay. Well, you know, again, as resident or one of the residents, and I'm going to let everyone else speak. I won't take up too much of your time. We consider this, and you summed it up quite well. It's a squish into a small area. We find it ludicrous. Never mind the environmental impact it's going to have. Our wetlands are right there, and there's an aquifer underneath there, I believe. And then, you know, you're talking about all that fill, Mr. Andronico, coming in. It's supposed to be purified fill. How do you know it's not contaminated? And the
Because
height of
we
the
have a soil management plan that would verify that, and that has been submitted, and it probably is available on the town website. And Mr. Brennan can probably comment to that as well.
And I think we've already addressed that at the last meeting. I know we addressed this
Okay.
when it came to the quality of film. Mr. Brennan, can you address any of this, please?
Well, as far as the soil management plan, they do have a plan in place which requires testing of the source material and then also when it's delivered. So there is that plan in place for the soil that's going to be brought to the site. As far as the environmental impacts, you know, I've reviewed it from the civil engineering point of view. The drainage, the stormwater, the water quality to make sure that it complies with all the state standards. In the stormwater at this point, I'm satisfied with stormwater design. You know, there's other issues, obviously proximity to wetlands, that vernal pool issue that I brought up earlier with that conceptual parking area. So there's still some, still some issues to work out, but I have been reviewing these materials as they come in and providing comments to the board.
Thank you. I think the biggest issue besides the water is the traffic. And I've been saying that since the beginning, Rob, and for the rest of the board, the traffic is horrendous as it is. I just can't fathom any more cars on the road here, COVID or pre-COVID. It's insane. And if anybody that we all live in Rockland, you all know what this place is like. And to add that much more traffic here, I just can't even imagine how that's going to work. Never mind on that little stretch of Pond Street. gotta be kidding me. And again, is there an independent peer review for the traffic that talks
Yes,
about
sir.
the traffic?
Yes, sir. That's Gillen Associates. They provided us, excuse me. The applicant provided us their traffic study, but they also paid for an independent traffic study by Gillen Associates, and that's our traffic review engineer. So we have that back and forth. And if Ms. Parsons remembers, I told her that I was going to be getting that to her. So I will make sure that that is also on the board, available on the website, that y'all can basically download, look at your leisure.
Okay.
All right. So we're talking, we've done with the traffic. We've beat that to a dead, we've beat that dead. Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about new?
I'm gonna pass on to one of the other residents. I've had my say.
I appreciate it, Mr. Ronan. Thank you for speaking up. Thank you for being the first one. I appreciate that.
As always, thank you.
Who's next?
Next, Teresa Buffum, 15 Condon Circle.
Teresa Buffum. I'm sorry, Teresa Buffum. What was the address again, ma'am?
15 Condon Circle.
Thank you, ma'am. What's your general concerns?
I just had some basic questions. When was the last study done about the need for low and moderate income housing in Rockland? And what percentage are we at right now?
I don't know if anybody can really answer that, but I know we're not at 10%.
I believe you are at 6.4%.
Thank you, Mr. Andrew.
Where's the source for that information? I mean, that's really, really, really the basis of this whole thing.
It's DHCD that publishes that.
Okay, so we can find that online, you're saying?
You can. I found it tonight online.
Okay. And the other concern is, do you know how many housing units there are in Rockland so that we can ascertain the size of this project? Because based on the number of units, I believe it's 236, if I heard correctly. And
That's correct.
council can maybe address this. You have to compare that to the number of units in our town. Do you know the number of housing units in our town? Because you can deny the application if the project is large compared to the number of units we actually have. There's a formula for that. And the Massachusetts regulations provides that information. I'm just concerned that we don't have the basic information coming out of the gate. Is there a need in Rockland for low and moderate income housing? And what is the status of this project in relation to the number of housing units? If the zoning board can't tell us the number of housing units in Rockland, how do we even assess the size of this project? And council, correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't the Massachusetts regulations address this? And determines the size of the project depending on the unit down?
Rob, we're in the process of updating the master plan with MAPC. I think it got impacted by the, it was impacted by some of the COVID and the pandemic issues.
No, it's absolutely understood. Half the committees that I'm on aren't meeting because of that.
Just for example, if a town has 7,500 or more total housing units, a project is deemed large if it's 300 housing units, or the housing units proposed are 2% of all the housing units in the town. I mean, my point here is, and I can go on, it was between 5,000 and 7,500, but the point here is, coming out of the gate, have we done a basic assessment of whether we should be even accepting the application? Or do we deny it going out? Do we deny it right off because we don't need moderate and low income housing?
Ms. Buffum, Attorney Galvin would like to respond to that, please.
That's fine. And then I won't say anything further.
So in 2016, in the fall of 2016, the town of Rockland created a housing production plan, and that's available on the state website. And that kind of gives you a kind of synopsis as of a few years ago as to, what the demographics of the town were, the comprehensive housing needs assessment, the type of housing stock, age, tenor, housing market, housing affordability. The reality is the town of Rockland has only 6.4% or slightly above that of housing that qualifies for the subsidized housing inventory, although the town of Rockland has a overabundance of units that are affordable to someone that earns 80% of the median income in the area. The problem is a lot of those units are mobile homes and others are in private ownership and can't be permanently restricted. I think I recall citing in a opposition to a project eligibility letter at one point that we had like 678 units. So that exists, but we're in the process of updating the master plan, and that was interfered with by the pandemic. So we're going to have even more current information, but the information that we do have is not all that, dated either.
Not to interrupt you, but you're basing it on a 2016 report, 6.4%. Isn't it time to update that?
No. The Department of Housing and Community Development updates its subsidized housing inventory list. The one that I found online when I was looking tonight was effective through 2017. I know that the zoning board has added 2 affordable housing projects, the Lydia Square project, and I forgot the other one, but they're about 40 units. And those are, I believe that one is going to be apartments, the other one is going to be for sale units. So the reality
is the only one that's under construction at this point.
No, but there is another one though. There's another
but
privately held.
It's been put, but it's been pulled off the market from what I heard.
Okay.
Gave that we approved it. We definitely approved it, but it's not under construction.
So that'll fall off the subsidized housing inventory.
Exactly.
So
unfortunately,
we're probably not far from 6.4%.
Right. We are dealing with some dated or slightly dated information.
Yeah, kind of like the traffic study from 2017 stated. You just got to go with, Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Who's next?
Can I say something on that?
Well, Mrs. Parsons, I heard you.
Okay, on that subject, since I was involved in that and since a Weymouth resident sent me the information on where landmass can be done to provide whether or not you've attained your 10% affordable housing. I can tell you DCHD does not keep track of any town's affordable housing, and what happened and what came to the 2016 issue is our then town administrator would not do the landmass. He wanted the Bridgewater housing, their affordable housing thing, because he comes from Bridgewater, to be ours. That's how that went to town meeting. And he even told a resident here to do the work herself and do the landmass. I've even had where MAPC did for Quincy recently, and then turns around and tells us that, oh no, we didn't do that. Yes, you did, it's in the newspaper. But on the subject of the vernal pool, you cannot move a vernal pool, and these vernal pools are located in a Zone A drinking water source. That whole area is a Zone A drinking water source. And you cannot move those vernal pools, and the Army Corps of Engineers does not rule on that.
Mr. Galvin, do you
I
want to?
can contact the people with that.
Mr. Galvin, do you want to respond to any of this?
With respect to the 1.5% argument, we're not going to win that argument. Okay, we don't have 1.5% of our land area in affordable housing. We just do not have that. We're not going to win that. That case gets
We
lost.
don't know that because we've never done that study.
Well, I can tell you this: if 700 units of our housing don't qualify as affordable housing because they can't be permanently restricted, you're not going to be able to count any of that land area as being in affordable housing. You're going to lose this, and you don't have to spend $100,000 to get that answer.
That's not the land area, what land area is about. You take out your commercial, you take out your industrial, you take out your wetlands, you take out your surface water, and then you come up with your 1.5 square miles. Weymouth did it. And for the past 20 years, they didn't have to do any 40B.
Weymouth has a lot more multifamily apartments than Rockland does. And by the way, I was involved in a case that was a 40B that resulted in that project, the one that's in the back of Weymouth Commons, so I know it.
All right, I'm gonna end this conversation right now. Mrs. Parsons, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Barbara Brown, you wanted to step
Hi.
up and say something. I apologize. I saw Mrs. Parsons first. I apologize.
That's fine.
What can I do for you? Name and address for the record, please.
Okay, Barbara Brown, 94 Turner Road.
Thank you.
Two things. One, since our last meeting, there have actually been several reverse 911 calls due to water emergencies, water restrictions, leaks, the tanks running low. I know we've had several water main breaks. So the addition of 236 units on top of an already strained system seems, I don't know what makes us think that we can support this. But then secondly, what steps can we take to prevent 236 units being built on our water supply? That's the scary piece here. There's all kinds of 403B and, you know, all that stuff that, you know, we can fight and you can pick other locations, et cetera. But building on top of our water supply scares the shit out of me.
No, I'm absolutely understood. And what I'm going to say right now is that unfortunately the board had, I don't think, and Judy can check me on this, but I don't think we have an updated comment sheet from the Abington Rockland Joint Waterworks. So we really can't talk about it only because we don't have that. If I had that, then we'd have something to discuss. They have not said it's, and again, Judy, I don't know if I think you're still here, but I don't think that we have an updated comment sheet from them.
Judy had to leave because she was at her office. So
no, I understand. But I did just remembering what we dealt with before. We don't have that. So
okay.
Once we get that in our hand, then someone can respond to that. And I apologize.
That's fair. But you know, I think too, the building on the water supply and who is that Abington Rockland Joint Waterworks discussion as well?
Yep.
Okay, so so I can express my concerns there as well, so that hopefully, I mean, I'm sure they know, but
by the next meeting we should have something, and then we can at least talk about it.
Fair enough.
I don't know if I don't see him online. I don't know if Mr. Brennan is still here, so I don't know if he has any other information. Oh, there he is right there. I see him, but I don't know if he has any information from the water department.
No, they haven't updated. We haven't received any updated comments.
Okay, so we're gonna leave it at that. Ms. Brown, I appreciate your comments. Please.
Thanks.
Stay tuned. We will have more information as of the next meeting. All right, who's next?
Thanks.
Dennis O'Brien, 21 Curry Street.
O'Brien, right there. I see Sue O'Brien.
Yeah, she's in bed.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, let's make this quick.
Mr. Rose, I have some concerns. I sent you a couple of letters. Basically, it encompasses the traffic, and I've been here for 34 years, and I've seen throughout the years the traffic increase. I know we showed a study tonight. I don't know if I agree with that study. Based on living here for 34 years, it just doesn't seem to be feasible with all the development that went into Assinippie, with South Shore Medical going in there and all the other things that are going in there. The traffic is just horrendous. But anyway, taking the emotion out of it, I think I'm not against development, but I think that this development is just too large for that piece of property. I'm very aware of that property. I know the wetlands around there. I also know how much water it attracts. And I know we've done studies. I know the Board of Health had some questions and concerns about the storm infiltration to soil contamination. And I see some of the answers, and I don't know who agrees with the answers or say that they're okay with them. But some of these answers that were given, from the developer, for instance, there's pockets of residual buried solid waste that were identified and will be removed to the extent that is feasible during building. What does that mean?
It means tires. That's literally what that is.
When
Tires.
feasible. I mean, the verbiage to me is very general.
Oh, and it's meant to be general, because the truth of it is, if there's a tire on our site that we don't need to move, we won't move it. But solid debris is tires and a couple of fenders. And I assure you that we've done deep soil testing and groundwater testing, and all the reports are available to everyone, and we have found no contamination. These are tests done in a laboratory. They've been done by professional certified environmental engineers and reviewed by the like. So,
Mr. Brennan, have you seen this? I know the answer, but.
Yeah, they did submit some reports, some geotechnical reports on that information. You know, a lot
You
of
have
that.
a problem with it?
Well, I mean, I reviewed it more for the geotechnical side of things.
Exactly.
Because, as you know, they need to do some, what they call some soil modification to support the buildings and so forth out there.
Mhm.
So I was looking at it more from that standpoint, but the reports that I read, the 21E, the LSPs were saying that there was not contamination out there.
So that's coming from our review engineer.
Yeah, I was just concerned because I've walked that property for 34 years and I know what's down there. It was a live junkyard when I first moved here. Ending. I was here when Boston Whaler was here, and then Depot moved in, and I know the enormous amount of contaminated ground they moved out of there to put Home Depot in. And I know a lot of that has filtered into this area. But anyway, I have a concern with the drinking water. I also have a concern with the capacity of storage, because I know there's other applicants for other 40Bs that are going in, and I think we're just going to get over capacity. You know, I don't think we can handle it.
That's understood, sir. We do have that. And again, we talked about it in the beginning. We have a draft letter that came from the sewer department. Until it gets formalized, we really can't look at that. But from a draft perspective, the applicant does have that, and he will take that into consideration, because there were a decent amount of conditions that they did put on there. So that's one concern that the applicant has to look at this point. Is there anything else I can do for you, sir?
No, thanks for your time.
I appreciate you stepping up. Who's next? 5. Hearing none.
Well, one more.
Got in there just okay.
Hi, Richard Howcom. I live at 261 Turner Road, and I got a couple questions. Is there going to be land taking to create that left-hand turn lane that goes from Pond Street into Longwater? And where's that land going to come from? That guy's got his truck pointed right to the curb on his property.
Explain to me what you mean by land taking, because
well, to make a left-hand turn lane, you have to make that road wider right there at that intersection.
Are you sure?
You'll have to round off, take some land to the right to get that southbound lane to go by the left-hand turn lane, I would imagine.
Mr. Andronico, I think this is a little too early to talk about that. Actually, Mr. Bandini, he'd like to speak. So I saw his hand.
Sure thing, absolutely. So we did run, some truck turning and conceptual design for that left turn lane, and it did look like we were able to produce everything that's within the town right away. So there would be no private land taking for that particular use.
I've done so, sir. Just so you know, I've done some land surveying in that area. I know the actual width of the road, and I don't think that they need to take property from anybody.
Yeah, it's certainly we haven't provided a final design, but on a conceptual level in terms of required lane widths and widths to permit heavy vehicle truck turning into Longwater Drive. It certainly looks like that we would be able to take the land within the town right away and would not need to encroach on private town property at that section.
The only issue would be if a sidewalk were to be built, then there may be an issue, but we're not talking about that right now. What do you got next, sir?
I have another question. Snow plowing around the units. There's not much space around there to push any snow, and probably couldn't be done anyway because it would melt into the wetlands and, which is a water supply, and it would have contamination like oil and salt in it. So what would happen with snow in that property?
I can answer a little bit of that for you. Number one, there's several areas on the plan. I don't have the plan in front of me, but I remember there were several areas that were called out as snow storage areas.
That's correct.
But something else that we've done on several projects is basically put in a condition that says snow storage will be off-site. You have to truck it out. So that is something that we've done in the past, and with the amount of pavement that's out here, and with the limited area that you really have to be able to put this, then it's going to have to go off-site, more than likely. But again, that's a condition that we would have to discuss with the applicant. But typically, that's what we've done with other projects. What do you got? What do you got next?
We also
last
put
thing-
that as a no salt zone.
Okay.
Last thing I heard from the fire department recommendation, they were looking for a road going, a 24-foot wide, non-parkable road going around the complex so they can have good access in an emergency. I don't see any space for that kind of a road.
The problem is that the applicant just got those comments.
Okay.
They have to look at that now. So we're gonna leave that as is, because they can't comment on it right now.
All right.
What do you got next?
And last, why can't this go over to the airbase land? It's beautiful over there.
Ooh. I don't know how to address that.
Because no 40B is allowed there.
Whoa.
40B is not allowed on the base.
Really?
Okay, that answers that question. Mary
That
Parsons,
answers that.
thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We got to fix that.
Can I give you a list of what I have, just a written list so that you can address it the next time around?
If you want to put it together in an email, and if you want to put an email to the board, I can do that. And then once I get that, I can respond back with the traffic studies.
Okay.
And that actually makes it a lot easier. But you have to do me a favor. Next time you come on a public meeting like this, I don't want to see a pumpkin. I want to see your beautiful face. Come on. Come on. You got anything else, Ms. Parsons?
I'm done. Thank you.
No, not now.
Mr. Holcomb, you all set?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Could I ask a question, please?
Whoa, who's talking now?
My name's Jessica Laverty, 27 Vernon Street.
Jessica, how you doing?
I'm well, thank you.
Thank you for showing up tonight.
Oh, right on. First, could we potentially request, and I don't know if this is a doable thing, for the next meeting, could we get a site view from like the Wilson Street area? Is that possible? Just to see how that would look from that point of view?
Mr. Andronico.
We can try to accommodate that. Let me look into that.
Okay.
David, that's what we provided last meeting.
Was it in this package? Maybe I can
It
pull it
was
up.
from the previous package, we made a Wilson Street view.
A Wilson Street
find it right now.
3D?
I've not seen that. Thank you. And then, when we're referring back to, obviously, and I'm going to hop on beating these horses, the master plan that came out last fall even said we had a lack of sewer and water available right now to move forward to accommodate these proposed housing situations. And then finally, I just was wondering, with the overlay red proposed solution for the missing parking being not something that can happen, is there any other idea as to where the replacement parking would go, or are we back to a 1.25 spaces per unit?
I can answer most of that. Number one, the water department, we've already talked about that. We really can't talk about that until we have their comments. That's number one. Number two, the sewer department, based on their draft letter that they have not finally endorsed yet, they are requesting mitigation from the applicant. The applicant has to look at that, and they have to basically assess if that's feasibly possible. What was the other one? Number three, Mr. Andronico was gonna see if you can find that the three-quarter 3D view from Wilson.
Yeah, I'm looking for it as we speak. I'm trying to listen and do that. I don't want to miss anything.
Yeah, and then just in the final question I had was, is there a proposed or other site in the works for parking,
Oh, the
whereas
additional parking.
the red overlay parking is not something that can happen?
I can answer that right now. There's nothing that they can really talk about right now because it was only conceptual. It was just a thought that they kind of threw out to us, just basically to show that they are thinking about this.
I will tell you this, if we determine that is unusable space, we're not gonna throw up our hands up and quit. We'll find another way to accommodate it.
There you go. Jessica, is there anything else you'd like to ask the applicant?
No, I just genuinely, I obviously I'm not a huge fan of this. It's primarily due to its location. I very much support 40B housing. I think it is a necessity, especially in a town of our size. But I also believe that if something's just not right, you don't push it through for the sake of, or under the guise of, creating a solution when it creates more problems. And, I didn't really care for, this is me personally, the tone of, we don't want to go to the state. Well, we're not forced into anything here. We're still people with voices, and there are still lots of hurdles. And I don't think that it's really in anyone's best interest to come in and make the townspeople feel that they're, whether they want it or not, it's going to go through, because we'll go run, up to the Capitol.
No, ma'am, I need you to understand. I need you to understand.
If I might respond to that, I would like to point out that I didn't bring up that avenue.
No, I did.
And
No,
I
and I understand that.
And I responded to, we don't want to go to the state. The tone was intended to imply that we want you folks to be happy about this project, which is why we're making the efforts we're making. We don't want to go to the state. I don't mean that as a threat. I mean that as, we want you to like it. That's what we're trying to make happen.
And
I'm just saying, please realize it did sound pretty much like we're going to get it done no matter what. And I understand you saying that, but that, does not necessarily hold water.
I did not mean to bring it up to cause issues. In the end, it really comes down to, I want the townspeople to understand that there aren't a lot of avenues that we can go down that doesn't basically involve appeals from the applicant. We need to work together on this. We all need to work together on this. If this works and we can make it work between the town and the applicant, then it works. If based on what we want them to do, it's not going to work, well, I don't know where it goes from there. All I know is that the reason why we have this forum right now is so people can voice their opinions. So the zoning board, who unfortunately we're the ones that are tasked with this, and we're the ones who end up looking like jerks because we want to better our town, but it's a difficult situation for us as zoning board members to be in. And I appreciate every single one of the members of the town that showed up to this. And again, I still have at least two pages worth of people that are sitting here. So
please forgive me if I made you feel like you made a situation or incited a situation. That's not the circumstance whatsoever. And I think everybody that's been on this call, frankly, has no opposition to growth within Rockland.
And I agree with that.
The offering of 40B, we all just have some sort of issue with the idea of squeezing a 20-pound rock into a 5-pound package next to our drinking water, which most of us know there was a garbage site. No matter what anyone's saying, that trash in that toxic fumes, they did not just disappear. That's not how chemistry works, and so I think that everybody is open to growth, but just want to make sure we are safe. Our town is safe.
Exactly. And that's what this zoning board is here to do. And that's why we have professionals on our side. Land use council, engineering review, traffic review, 40B review. We've had this project alone, we've had more professionals on our side than we've ever had, than any 40B that I've ever been involved in the last almost 12 years now. So And again, I want you to understand that we are doing the best that we can. And I do appreciate the fact that you did step up and you are voicing your opinion. I appreciate that. But I am going to have to end this part of the conversation and ask, is there anybody else that wants to say anything?
I was going to respond to that, Rob, if that's okay.
Please, Miss West, go for it.
I didn't pull up the exact rendering, but I do have a section from our engineers showing what it would look like in a section view from the abutters from on Wilson Street.
Was that the profiles that were the profiles and cross sections that I requested?
This is more of a landscape version of that.
If you want to try and share your screen real quick.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Thanks, Aaron.
So this is what it would actually look like from the, so all the way to the left would be down Wilson Street. And then the road is up to the right, but you can see there's a substantial amount of green buffers and landscaping boulders.
I think what Jessica is looking for is some sort of 3/4 profile, just like what as seen from Hingham Street.
Yes, that's what I'm looking for.
If you were standing, let's say, on Wilson Street or
That
in
poison ivy.
if that's something, and kind of like looking up at the top of the building. I haven't seen that, so I don't know if that's.
Yeah, that's what I was asking for, not this.
I'm sorry. So looking
I think I understand what the ask is. Let us work on trying to coordinate something. Aaron, I think it's literally standing on Wilson and you're looking up at the building. What's the view?
Exactly.
Clubhouse on your right, you're looking into the parking lot.
That's okay. I want to see what the building looks like from Wilson Street.
All right.
Got it. Sorry, I don't have that. You're
no,
right.
that's understood. I haven't seen it. So
Thank you.
I didn't think that was available. All right, so we got that. What else? Who else wants to step up and say anything?
Hello. Somebody else did.
And what do I got? I got nobody. All right, hearing none, we're done.
I got a question for you about that parking lot, the new parking lot.
We've already talked about this, so please make it something different that.
No, about the way it's set up against people, almost in people's backyards.
Rob, name and address, please.
Yeah, name and
31
address.
Kobe Street, Rockland, Mass.
Please, one more time.
31 Kobe Street.
What's your name, Dan?
Dan DeRuss.
Thank you.
The parking lot abuts the people's houses.
Right, and
They
that
get
and
a lot of water from down there.
first and foremost, Dan, in the town of Rockland, we require a 10-foot buffer off of all property lines when it comes to pavement. So they haven't even we really can't even comment on it. We really can't even look at it because it's not an official design. That's number one. And number two, it right now, based on what they provided, doesn't meet any of the zoning requirements. So they'd have to be asking for some zoning variances. It's the only reason why that was presented was to show that the applicant is forward thinking when it comes to trying to increase the parking. It has nothing to do, it's not an official design. It's not anything official whatsoever. And if it does come to, if they do want to put that in, that would have to be, the drainage calcs would have to be redone. Everything would have to go back to our review engineer. He would have to review everything all over again. So right now, I appreciate what you're saying. It is very close to the property lines, but it's not something we can really discuss at this point. If you have something that we can discuss at this point, I would love to hear it.
The traffic's terrible.
Okay, we already know that. Give me something else.
Yeah, nothing else. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it, Dan. Thank you very much.
Mr. Rosa, can I ask a question?
George Fitzgerald, go for it.
It's Lisa Fitzgerald, 10 Wright Street.
How you doing, Lisa?
I'm doing good. When can we have an anticipated water and sewer timeline? Or
when is it? You're asking a question.
I know.
I'm
tired. You're tired and you're irritated. I
No,
understand.
no, I'm not irritated. No, believe me, I am not irritated. I'm just a gruff kind of person. I can tell you this: we can't talk about it right now because I don't know. You're asking me something that I can't answer.
No, I understand that, but it's like we come to meeting after meeting and nobody ever has any of the documents. We're always waiting. Do we know, is there a deadline for when water and sewer need to put their reports in?
Unfortunately, no. But what I can do, what I would encourage you to do, make a phone call to the water department.
I absolutely will.
They're not, we've given them information. I know that they're busy and I'm not trying to throw them under the bus either. I don't even know if they've received the documentation to be able to look at this.
Fair enough.
That's the problem at this point. That is the
No
problem.
problem. I can make a call, no worries. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you stepping up. And again, don't think that I'm aggravated or angry at anybody. It's just, there's a lot of dead horse beating and I'm not, and that's something that I just don't like. But who's got anything else? Anybody else?
Motion adjourned.
That's what I wanted to hear. We got to talk about, continuance. Mr. Andronico?
So I would say that, so it sounds like what I'm waiting on would be the comments from the water department, the official.
Hold on, let me just grab I've got to grab a pen here so I can make my own personal notes. Oh, hold on.
Sure.
All right. You guys are waiting on.
So, and correct me if I'm wrong. So I believe that we're waiting on official comment on the 9-4 package from the water department.
Water.
We have the draft response from the sewer department, but we would need an official response.
Yep, draft sewer.
And then I believe the intention is for the board to form some kind of memo which explicitly outlines the revisions that you'd like us to make. So then we can revise our model and drawings, price it out, and then provide some kind of response in regards to the economic feasibility of the changes that you've requested.
Understood. Is there anything else you think you need from us?
I think that is all we need. I will double confirm, and if I find that there is something else I'm not thinking of, although I'm quite certain that that's really everything, I will reach out and let you know. But I think that's everything I need. In the meantime, I think I have enough to at least start building the revised package. But I will wait on your memo and those comments from water and sewer.
All right.
And then I believe I will have everything I need to address all concerns from the town and the board, at which time I'll be able to put together a new package in addition to that pro forma.
No, I understand. Can you do me a favor? I know that I have it someplace. Can you, the last traffic study that you did, can you email that to me?
Absolutely.
All right. If you can do that to me. Pat, are you still here? Yep.
Depends on what, Pat, you're talking about.
Pat Brennan, can you do me a favor? I know I have it someplace. Can you email me Gillen's last traffic report? All right. Because I owe Mary Parsons traffic studies from both.
Pat, you have our last traffic study as well, correct?
I probably do. I'll double check.
All right. Listen, if you're not 100% certain, I'll send it. I just.
Yeah, no, I'll send it to Rob first thing in the morning. I'll copy David on it.
All right, great. Because Rob, I'm not sure I have your email address, and I'm not sure if I want to ask you to say it over the air.
Oh, I don't care.
It's up to you, but I
put it this way: I have your email address from the last thing that you sent to the zoning board. So
okay.
I'll reply with my personal email address, and then if you can email me that, if Pat can email me that, then I can get that information to Mary Parsons. That takes care of that end of it.
Perfect.
Next thing we got to talk about is Attorney Galvin. Are we anywhere close to that 180 days?
Well, the state has extended the deadlines.
Okay.
Your board has conducted 40B hearings in any event in order to try to accommodate this applicant, not necessarily to say, yeah, it's not a problem. We're trying to continue on with the business of evaluating affordable housing projects. And that's what we're doing. I think it would be best if we had a written understanding with the applicant here that, the review is going to continue. We're going to try to pick another date, expeditiously here, that the time frame is not impacted. I know there's a state law that exists that extends the timeframes, but I think it would be better just to have an understanding with the applicant.
Mr. Andronico, it's going to take a little time. Obviously, it's going to take a little time to get our information to you.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to need time to process said information to be able to get your information back to us. What's a good, what's from today's date? What's a good
I would say
month?
If we could try to shoot for maybe the second week of December, does that seem like a reasonable amount of time, or does it seem like too much time?
Kim, where are you?
Sorry, here.
No, all good. What? Talk to me about dates.
So we have.
And I know you're married. I don't want to go on a date with you.
I have December 1st or December 15th.
Me being me, I'd push it out as far as humanly possible.
15th.
But Mr. Andronico?
December 15th. I would say that I don't have any reason why that shouldn't work for us.
Board members, how's the 15th of December work out for everybody?
Works for me.
Fine. Mr. Baker, Tim's good. Gregor?
Yeah, fine.
And you're good. Steve, where are you?
Good.
Mr. Galley, it's that works.
Fine.
December 15th, 12:15 at 7:30 still works.
Yes.
Yeah.
Works for everybody, yes.
And we'll try to keep this the only matter on that night, Mr. Rosa, so that we can focus exclusively on this. All right.
Absolutely.
If I might ask, do we have any sense? I know this is a difficult question to answer.
Yep.
Do we have any sense of when you might be able to get us that information? It just will help me plan and.
I will reach out I can reach out to the sewer department. I have no problem there. I'm gonna request some help from the town administrator to get some information from the water department. The big problem that I have is knowing as to whether the water department has the 9-4 submission. So I have to figure that out first, and then they have to review it and then get the letter to you. So the first question that I have to answer is, do they have the plan? And if they don't have the plan, how do I get that copy to the plan?
Rob, I would just say we would definitely be able to get this done within a couple of weeks here to Mr. Andronico.
Oh, yeah, that I can say.
At the very least, the ZBA memo, I think, is probably the most important document, because I think that's going to have the most meat and give me the most to run with.
I have to sit down, I have to write it. And again, this is just me ballparking what the time period is going to be. I have to sit down, I have to write it. I have to take in everybody's comments. I have to go through with the board members. I have to forward it to them. I have to get their comments on it to make sure that I'm expressing what they want to know, or that what they want to see, make my modifications. They have to look at it one more time. Hopefully there's nothing after that. I'm hoping within a couple of weeks, if not sooner.
Okay.
Because unfortunately, we all have jobs. So again, I'd like to think that within a couple of weeks, we'll say 2 weeks, which, where the hell's my calendar?
That's November 10th.
Damn it. 1, 2, November 10th, 11/10. 11/10. Who the hell's texting me now? Nobody. Yeah, I can make that happen. Make that happen. I don't see that being an issue.
Great, thank you.
Not a problem. I would entertain, at this point, a motion to continue the meeting until December 15th at 7:30.
So moved.
We got a second?
Second.
I got a second. I need a roll call. Who's where? Tim?
Yes.
Gregor?
Yes.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Myself is a yes. We're the 4 voting members on this. Attorney Galvin, since we only have 4 members, can I ask Steve Galley to be on the board at this point, or is that not a?
No, he's missed more than one meeting, and
Yeah.
all that's required for an approval is actually a majority vote, so.
Majority? Okay.
Correct.
All right. All right, so I got all four. That's that motion passes. So meeting's gonna
Bob,
be,
could we ask that we have all his Dave's information back to us before the meeting?
oh, let's look at that then.
By December
So
8th.
maybe like by the 10th or 11th?
That cuts one full week off. Just make sure he's okay with that. Mr. Andronico?
So
Oh,
we
so
have the
no.
meeting for the 15th, so you're looking
Right.
for material, my material by when?
By the
The
8th.
week
That
before.
weekend, the weekend.
So call it the 8th, so that gives me, let me see. That
No,
gives
say
me, if I get yours by the 10th, that gives me 1,
Even the 11th.
2, 3. It gives me 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I'm gonna commit to that.
If you can get it to us by the 8th, that would give the board members a full week to go over everything. And
Even the 11th, that Friday.
I'm gonna shoot for the 8th. I'm gonna shoot for the 8th, and if I can better it, I'll better it.
Thank you.
I like that.
Thank
All
you.
right. All right, is everybody all set? Mr. Galvin, Attorney Galvin, do we have to do anything else? Are we good?
I'll work with either Mr. Adronico or Walter Marioni to take care of any other procedural matters.
All right, I appreciate that, sir. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
You already have one.
Well, then if that's the good, I need a second.
I'll second.
You can't second. You recused.
Oh, okay.
You shouldn't even be here, dude.
I'll second, Rob.
I got a second from Mr. Tanzi. I need a roll call. Mr. Haynes,
Yes.
Mr. Tanzi,
Yes.
Mr. Baker,
Yes.
myself is absolutely. So that's all four.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody, for showing up. I appreciate it.